Well then, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for an evening with a pleasant view. Our race on the legendary mountain. The real Bathurst 1000 was supposed to be a week ago. However, we've come in a week later to save you from that and fill in the gap. With it delayed, it's all about us. We're expecting to see one day in the near future Mustangs versus Camaros on the mountain once again, but why not in the virtual world represent it right here and right now for 100 minutes of fantastic racing on one of the most difficult race circuits on the planet. And of course, there is also a giveaway as well, which you can join in the description. There's a little bit of information by putting into chat !T248. You can get yourselves into a giveaway for a RaceRoom branded Thrustmaster T248 wheel. But whilst we're focused here on the broadcast, coverage of the EU Gold server is what's on offer for today. We've got qualifying, we've got the race coming up. It's myself, Lewis McGlade. We've got Zach Sweeney doing a bit of a first step here into the race room world here in the commentary booth, and also of course on the broadcast doing the cameras all across today is Chris Doe. You might know him a bit more as Captain Coffee. So Zach, welcome along not only to the mountain but also to race room as well.
Yeah, it is a pleasure to be here, and of course for the Bathurst 100. It is a legendary circuit, isn't it, Lewis? It really does test a driver's skill, a driver's patience, a driver's consistency. You need everything to be successful around here because, well, it's a fast-flowing circuit, but the wall is never too far away.
I feel like that's already starting to be a bit of a shot in my way. Thanks, Zach. About being consistent.
We won't be there just yet, Lewis.
Of course, fantastic to see Mustangs against Camaros. It does seem like the Camaros are going to be some of the cars of choice. Now, me from a commentary perspective, I come more from the esports side of things when it comes to race room. I've been trying myself out a little bit on the ranked side of things. Know there is a massive following here on the ranked side as everyone jumps in to do their bit. So, you know, there's a few drivers on this grid that I know, like Attila Dina, who's sat up there in third position, like Max Pfeiffer, who's sat in second position, Sven Mackenberg as well, who's presently on our screen. All these drivers have taken part over on the esports side of things, but they also, of course, jump in on the ranked side. Max Pfeiffer's right up there with the top rankings on the ranked side, so gets plenty of racing done here on RaceRoom Racing Experience, and it's always great to see drivers challenge Zach in completely different machinery than what they're used to. These drivers are more used to touring cars and the odd GT3. This is so different.
Yeah, and each car will have its own different characteristics. It's going to be a big learning curve, but I mean, it's a step into the unknown. Try different things. You never really know what you like or what you're particularly really good at until you dabble your foot in sort of everything. And you know, it's something a little bit different. If they've had their success in touring cars and GTs, why not take the step into these Camaros and Mustangs? And I will say it is a Camaro, Lewis, but yeah, no, it's just dabble your foot in a bit of everything and see what you can do. If you're successful somewhere else, you know, test how good you are elsewhere.
Well, you're never completing a driver until you've given yourself a bit of extra gusto taking on some slightly different cars and some slightly different tracks. I mean, I remember back in the day in my sim racing career, I would never have touched this track because I was terrified of it. It's such a difficult circuit to take on, let alone in these kinds of vehicles. But it is one of those ones where you learn a lot by racing around here. The walls are very close at all times over the top, but when it comes to setting up cars and in that vein, it's probably one of the hardest tracks to set up a car on. I mean, we've spoken time and time again of places like Monza or more particularly Spa, where you build a car for the corners and then you're kind of giving stuff away on the straights and all that kind of luck, right? It's all much of a balancing act. Whereas in around this track, so much more so. You've got to be great over the top, but you've got to be a bullet in a straight line as well, because the straights are so long around here.
Yeah, and it is just all about trial and error and tuning different things and seeing what works. Of course, you need to be quick. However, overtaking is going to be difficult, and you don't want to be a sitting duck down the straight, because then people can just wait, sit behind down the hill and going through, and then, you know, down the Conroy Straight or wherever, you can just easily blitz past in a straight line and jobs are good. And so it's all about, you know, what's good in qualifying as well. You need the cornering speed in qualifying, otherwise you're not going to be having anyone to defend from. But also you need to have that sort of just that confidence as well in the race, because you don't want a car that's too slippery in a straight line, because if you haven't got enough downforce going down the hill, you will most likely, well, the rear end will lift off under braking for sure, and then you're into a wall, and well, that's pretty much your race over. So again, with every track in terms of setups, it's all about just balancing the car and making sure it's comfortable for you, most important.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly a circuit you need to be comfortable on. Did see that pit lane entry there from Max Pfeiffer. Now, we are expecting, of course, over the 100-minute race that will be coming up momentarily, that we're expecting a pit stop. It's just a circuit around like this. Fuel mileage is critical. You know, you save a little bit here. Fair enough. It's only 100 minutes, but you know, you save an extra lap. You don't have to stay in the pit lane for quite as long as everyone else. Got all that to play into the account. But tyres are very, very interesting around here. With it being 100 minutes, normally, you know, we aim, in GT racing in general, of course, this is a step into the unknown for us as well as everyone else as a driver. 100 minutes, changing tyres, yes or no? It's not an easy equation. Around here, I'm going to say most drivers shouldn't change tyres. It's not an enormously high tyre wear circuit. You think of, like you say, Mountain Straight and Comrade Straight, enormous straights on the track, and then up and over the hill. Whilst yes, you've got a few places that are fairly high when it comes to the tyre wear, it's not the hardest circuit in the world on tyres, mostly in the fact that quite a lot of the corners around here are fairly low speed. They're working quite hard, but not to the same degree as they are at constant points. And then you've got large braking zones down into the chase, etc. It's kind of one of those ones that I expect most people won't take tyres, but then again, if that is the case, one person does take tyres, they might be in for a decent run towards the end of the race.
For sure. I mean, the thing as well with Bathurst is you haven't got an abundance of those long, really sort of just the ongoing corners that seem to just go on forever, and they're also, you're not really ever going sort of at a particularly fast speed through any corner. It's always the low and medium speed, low radius corners as well. Of course, you've got a couple. You've got the one down the Comrade Straight, the little kink towards the chase. That is gonna probably hurt the outside tires as well as Griffin's Bend. That sort of does go on for a while, but that's nowhere near as many as places like Spa or places like that, where the tires will be feeling a lot of the grunt. So relatively speaking, of course, drivers are going to be probably wanting to take it quite easy as well, because as we say, the walls are not too far away, so they're going to be going relatively easy just subconsciously anyway, which again is going to have a knock-on effect in terms of their tyre wear. But yeah, as you say, that one person that does take tyres and might find themselves having a good maybe couple attempts a lap, that will quickly add up around here. But again, the thing is, you don't want to lose that track position because it is difficult.
Absolutely. Qualifying is going to be critical around here. It will be coming up in a few moments' time. We've got a 20-minute qualifying session as Mosin goes for a little bit of a slide, but did give us a nice little lap around the circuit. So nice to see, as Pfeiffer will once again practice pit lane entry and exit. Attila Dina in the pit lane stationary and waiting to sort of get on with things. Very much a young talent. Actually, to give you a little bit of context with Attila Dina in the recent past, did exceptionally well in the Cupra Sim Racing Series at Monza. In the first race, got a well-deserved top 10. In the second race, ended up running up in second position. Bearing in mind, the Cupra Sim Racing Series is an extremely competitive sim racing series with some of the biggest names on RaceRoom. Doing very, very well. Of course, that being a front-wheel drive touring car with not quite as much power, and this being a Camaro that he's trying to get a wheelie out of exiting pit lane. So, you know, they're two very, very different cars, but still, I think confidence is everything in sim racing. We've known this quite a lot, everything in motorsport in general. But here, to be able to build from one thing to another, as much as this is just a ranked race, you know, fair enough. There's no major prize up for grabs or anything like that. It's not a championship with so much at stake, but a race win is a race win, and this is still extremely competitive. And if a driver like that is to win here, it does actually carry into plenty of other championships down the line.
For sure, confidence is a big sort of morale boost in a sense, you know. you always strive to do well, whether you're racing for a championship or for a prize money or whatever it might be. You still want to win regardless. It's just that competitive nature, you know, especially when it comes to sort of racing drivers. We are particularly sort of competitive when it comes to things like this, and you know, they are still racing. It is still a very competitive championship, and you do want to strive to do as well as you can. And as you say, that you do carry this confidence. If you win well here and you've got a championship, say tomorrow, you bring that winning mentality into that next race, and it boosts you, because the mentality is half the story. If you go into a race sort of doubting yourself or not as confident in your ability or in the car setup or whatever, you will, you know, not do as well as you perhaps could be. You could be one of the quickest drivers there, but if you're not in the right mindset and you're not going for moves that you maybe would do, or you're being more on the cautious side, or you're just sort of getting desperate because you're wanting to win a little bit too much, maybe because of being on the back foot for the last couple of races, it does affect you, and you will carry that through into your subsequent probably 2 or 3 races.
I've seen it time and time again where people things have gone wrong for whatever reason over a few races, and so then people are going into the next race expecting something to go wrong, and whilst expecting something to go wrong, naturally something does, because it's what you're looking out for. We're at the start of qualifying though, 20 minutes on the board. For a reminder to anyone jumping into RaceRoom for the first time, the way qualifying works here is the 20-minute session is a 20-minute session, meaning once that session ends, the session is over. There is no way to finish your final lap or whatever else. The session is done. We'll ride on board, I think, with Damien DeGrasse around the driver that topped practice coming into qualifying, going down into Hell Corner for the first time. Name that because it is such a difficult part of the race circuit. And then onto Mountain Straight, 1.1 kilometers in length as we begin our enormous climb. There's 175 meters of elevation change across the mountain. It is a fantastic venue. Into the cutting, down a couple of gears, hold it into the right hand side and out over this curb, watching out for the wall, and then into the cutting. A fantastic corner, blind on entry. If someone spun here, well, you're going to be involved in the crash before you know it. Final apex of the cutting, out of that through Quarry, and then prepare yourself for the extremely fast run through Reed Park right here, over from the right to the left, back over to the right hand side, into the dip at Frog Hollow, and then back up over Reed Park, back up over Solomon Park, down towards McPhillamy, one of the fastest corners on this track, but certainly not the fastest. That is yet to come. The track completely dips away at Skyline, running down through the S's and then into the Dipper. Once again, blind on entry, fully committed, running around this racetrack into Forest Elbow, named that due to a motorcycle rider who lost part of his arm at one point a very, very long time ago. Very important to get that corner correct, because it is an enormous 2-kilometer run all the way down here to the fastest corner in Australian motorsport. Back up and over a crest before you can see before you this extremely quick part of the racetrack, into an enormous braking zone, down through the gears from 6th all the way down into 2nd or 3rd gear, hook the apex on the left hand side all the way over from the right, get a little bit of slipstream as well as we run down to the final corner at Murray's. Let's see what Damien DeGrasse can do. Hook that curb on the left hand side just slightly. Pit lane is all the way over there on the left. Across the line at the moment from Max Pfeiffer, it's a 2:01.930, and DeGrasse does not have enough, missing out by 300ths over an enormous 6.2-kilometer run.
That is very fine margins for a 2-minute lap time. Of course, you normally see gaps like that at very shorter tracks that are probably 1:20 in lap time, but a 2-minute lap and 27 thousandths of a second between the two. It looked like a really hooked up lap as well from DeGrasse, but just couldn't quite pit Pfeiffer to provisional pole. At the moment, still 15 minutes left to go, and I think it is going to be very close between the two, but we haven't seen the best of it yet. We've still got a lot of people yet to sort of prove their mettle and come to fruition, come to the front. At the moment, it is a huge gap back to 3rd and 4th of Dyna, about 8 tenths back on the top two. But you never know, this track, it's probably very easy to find a lot of time if you just go for it that little bit more, break that a little bit later, carry that a little bit more speed, and just have that little bit more confidence. You can actually find yourself gaining quite a bit of time. This is Sebastian Ray in P6 at the moment, 1.2 seconds off, and going to be looking to improve upon his time. 1.2, it is a lot, but a 2-minute lap time, there's a lot of opportunity to gain that time back, Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's a decent length session. You've just got to be timing it right across the running here. But at the moment, Max Pfeiffer getting to the top of the session, that is absolutely superb, ahead of De Grasse, who, like I said, topped practice coming into this and was looking pretty fine. But obviously, as everyone's getting to grip with the racetrack, people are getting faster and faster. It is quite a large gap back down to Attila Dina, to Sands and to Mackenberg, as Alex Mosin jumps up into 5th position, puts 5 cars within a second. Here is Max Pfeiffer, not improving on this lap, as he'll run across the line and maybe call it, just seeing what happens to the tyres over a couple of lap run. Lost out plenty of time over that lap, and Attila Dean across the line and instantly bailed back into pit lane. No real improvement, still about 0.6 of a second off of De Grasse and Pfeiffer, who topped the session. De Grasse has already escaped to the pit lane, interestingly. Quite a bit of drop off there between the 2 laps, as we'll watch De Grasse start yet another lap, and we'll see if this will be enough. He's already got the target fixation, but the target is there, a 201.930 to beat.
Yeah, he can definitely do it. I mean, he's pretty much there in terms of lap time. It's just finding that little bit more, those tiny margins. 27 thousandths of a second, or is a very negligible amount of time in real life. But in racing, it can literally mean the difference between starting first and starting second. Sometimes even more so. But it's going to be crucial for him to do so. So long lap is a lot of time for him to gain that time up. He can probably be half a tenth up, but through one corner, it just takes that little bit of a twitch, a little bit of a mistake, and well, going over that, well, taking a little bit too much curb on the exit of Griffins might not help him at all. But he's a little bit up to the first sector. He just needs to find a little bit more time, keep it up, and not make tiny mistakes like that.
Yeah, just a bit slippery out of the cutting there. And this is the thing, is that at this level, they'll know as soon as they've made a mistake that is too great to come back from. We'll see De Grasse run up over the top of the mountain. You can see it here from TV cam. It is such a fantastic part of the world. Beautiful track. And then running down the hill, it really, really drops away. I mean, I'm saying this as if you've never seen Bathurst, but we all know this track is absolutely phenomenal, and can see as well, again, get you lot getting involved in chat as well. Purple in the second sector from Damien De Grasse, looking fantastic at the moment with a little bit of slipstream, although that into Forest Elbow was way too much, way too deep, clobbered the barrier as well. That lap will be gone. Just a reminder, again, I've seen plenty of you in chat doing it, but if you want to get yourselves a RaceRoom branded Thrustmaster T248, you can do so by putting exclamation mark T248 in chats, and plenty doing it. Just copy what they're doing to be involved in the giveaway. Of course, there is also, as far as I was told, they'll also be giving out a few of these wheels in the weeks to come. I think it's on October the 28th. It'll be given out to people that are active on the ranked multiplayer, as long as they've got a reputation of 80 or more. So make sure that you're involved on RaceRoom ranked multiplayer, at least on that day, because let's be honest, I mean, we both race on I'm pretty sure, unless you've got a wheel upgrade, pretty sure we both race on T300s, and a great wheel to at least get started on in sim racing if you're going to move anywhere else, or if you've got yourself a nice cheap wheel to start with to get involved with sim racing even at a beginning stage, a nice wheel to upgrade to anyway. So be sure to check that out, and again, enter in the chat.
And well, Thrustmaster, definitely one of the leading brands in terms of entry-level wheels. They do deliver high-quality wheels at a relatively low price for sim racing. Of course, you can easily spend upwards of £3,000–4,000 on a relatively good setup, but Thrustmaster give it a sort of a decent price, and they are very, very good wheels, Lewis. You know, they're reliable, they're trustworthy. And I think sim racing, you know, it is very open. It gives a lot of opportunity. You can be quick on a relatively decent wheel, but yeah, T248 definitely going to be one you want to get your hands on. Still, De Grasse and Pfeiffer, 1 and 2. Neither of them at the moment able to improve upon their previous best. Of course, we saw De Grasse a little bit up. Maybe will that knock his confidence? Maybe he might take his next lap a little bit more cautiously, knowing there's more at stake.
I think it might actually boost his confidence, knowing that there's plenty more in the tank. Again, was about 100th down on Max Pfeiffer across the first sector, but over the second had pulled over a 10th clear. Well, once again, keep our eye. I don't know what Max Pfeiffer's up to at the moment, but we have passed the halfway point in the session, and again, in 9.5 minutes' time, the session will be done and we'll get ourselves ready for 100 minutes of racing on the mountain. And with it being, 2 minutes, 1 second, I would take a wild assumption that the lap count that we're going to get over 100 minutes is going to be around about the 48, 49 mark. So plenty of laps of racing. Here is Max Pfeiffer, and those sector times, well, you can see it there. Not so good in the second sector, losing out 9/10 of a second is the young German, and unfortunately that is not going to be enough to secure pole position. With even more gusto, going to have to settle with the 201.930 that he's presently sat on. Just 2 drivers in the 201s. No one else can quite touch that. Attila Dina sat in a world of his own. But obviously, we can't forget that there is plenty of other drivers in this session. This one being the ranked gold session. There is plenty other drivers elsewhere across the ranked stratosphere taking part in this event as well concurrently, and I'm sure those of you watching, and I know plenty have got involved with ranked racing before, but if you want to get involved in ranked racing, very easy to do. Head over to onto Steam, find RaceRoom on there and just download it. You can get a starter pack. It's very, very cheap to get involved in the starter pack. Something like 10-15 quid, and gives you plenty of base tracks and cars to get involved in. It's a free download from Steam itself, and is perfectly good just to jump in and have a bit of fun with your mates. I've done that plenty of times. In fact, I remember with someone who I'm sure the community knows, DDF racer, who Daniel Finney, who had a 1,000 subscriber event a few months ago, the start of this year, I think it was, and we all took to random races. I think it was the Formula 4s or something in that vein around here, and having a 3-wide scrap over the top of the mountain with Robert Wiese, Miller and Gail Gortner. It was very good fun. Terrifying, mind, but just shows that the race you can get out of racing is plenty of fun.
Yeah, definitely, and racing in general, just get yourself involved, even if it's just a bit of a mess around with your mates. It is a lot of fun, and always, well, you never know, you might be half decent at it. It's very good to watch, trust me, it's just as good to play. At the moment, Attila Dina, sort of just in no man's land, really, sort of making marginal improvements. I mean, De Grasse at the moment currently has just pit Pfeiffer to provisional pole.
Yeah.
Now it swings his way by 66 thousandths of a second. He's just about managed to improve, but that close margin remains.
Didn't even notice that. De Grasse going up to the top as well. A little bit of movement as Mosen moves up into 4th position, just ahead of Sven Mackenberg. But yeah, De Grasse then jumping to the top of the session by less than a tenth. So it switched one way, switched the other, and now the pressure is on the driver currently of our Focus. A little bit of a snap there out of Hell Corner though might delay him up the mountain straight just ever so slightly. It's a lot of Camaros up at the top. Only Heinrich, the Mustang, that's up there, back with Attila Dina, who got blocked a little bit there in some traffic, and unfortunately I think might have to I was going to say back out of it, but he's on an outlap anyway, so I don't think it's too bad. Max Pfeiffer though, going out of Hell Corner, looked a little bit slippery. Coming out of Griffin's Bend didn't look so great either, and instantly pulled the plug on the lap. Smart move, because he knows that he's got enough time to get out there and do one more.
Yeah, I mean, it's well, it's worth it, isn't it? You don't want to be on the track with 4 or a few other cars running for practically nothing. It's just a waste of time. Go back to the pit lane, go for another outlap, and, well, just, reset yourself, get yourself into a better track position, and then go again, especially if you've got the time to. You might as well do it, because clean air, even though you might get a bit of a tow, if they make a mistake in front of you and then you're held up through, well, the tight and twisty sections of this circuit, it's going to cost you a lot of time, and he cannot afford to be losing a lot of time, especially in these final stages of qualifying, because the fine margins it is between himself and De Grasse, he needs to get himself up there. But it is a very close, well, it's a very close field from 3rd downwards, really. It's only a couple of tenths in it. We're on with Sven Mackenberg, who's now going towards his, the end of his lap. At the moment, he's 9 tenths off pole, but only a couple of tenths off the 2nd row. Yeah,
well, we'll have to see how it all kind of unfolds over the next just 5 minutes. A reminder that once we're done with this session, we move straight over into the race. No warm-up, no messing about, just racing. And that I absolutely love. I don't like this whole faff of trying to get things sorted of, oh, do you want to sit there for I do a touring car league. I'm not going to, throw them too much under the bus. So I do very much enjoy racing there and don't want to get banned again. It's the whole you do a 20-minute race followed by a 5-10 minute warm-up, a 20-minute race followed by a 10-minute warm-up. It's too much for me. I like to just get out there, get onto the racetrack, and get racing, and that is exactly what we're doing here. Our focus on Sven Mackenberg up the hill, hooks the apex, going. I say hook the apex. I think it was a little bit wide there going into Griffin's Bend. For a lot of these drivers, they're starting their laps. They'll still have 2 more, but once we pass the 4-minute mark, those drivers will essentially be starting their final lap, because as much as they could get around and then start another lap and get quite far along in that second lap, it won't be enough to complete it, and we have passed that point. So this now, Zach, is a proper pressure cooker, and this is where the great drivers rise to the top.
Yeah, it's where the great are separated from the good. It's when you can perform under pressure and know everything's at stake. De Grasse and Pfeiffer both are going to be feeling an immense amount of that pressure, but also Sven Mackenberg, he knows this is one of his final chances to really, consolidate himself amongst the midfield. He's not got a big gap back to Sands behind, but he can maybe get himself on the second row, because Mosin's only about a tenth and a half just in front of him. He's going to get one more lap in, and it's literally going to have to be all or nothing, and that is why a good banker lap time is important, so you're not having to pretty much double the amount of pressure that you're having on that final lap. But yeah, 3 minutes left to go. It is going to be, if you're starting a lap now, it's going to be your final lap. You have to give everything, and it can be so demoralizing. Your final lap, even if you're a couple of tenths up or anything, if you mess up, if you bottle that lap, it really does kill your spirit. Yeah,
absolutely. But when track position is so important, because we know the grid here at Bathurst is really, really tricky. It's very, very tight. Moving from 5th up to 3rd could have been everything for Sven Mackenberg. Unfortunately, it wasn't the case. Lost a little bit too much time in the 3rd and final sector of the track, and so we'll have to go about it one final time to improve a few tenths of a second to go and beat Tilladina and Alex Mosin off of that second row of the grid. Behind that, it will be Mackenberg and Sands on the 3rd row, Brautigan and Ray on 7 and 8th, and then Duran and Machuca just rounding out the top 10 with plenty of other drivers. We'll say, I think Mackenzie was down around 30th place, 28th place not too long ago, jumped up there inside the top 10 as Damien de Grasse is putting in classic fashion here with Bathurst. It would be classified as a lap of the gods if you were racing around here in the real track. But let's take a look at de Grasse across the line. Improved in the 1st sector, improved in the 2nd sector, and looks to really steal this away from Max Pfeiffer. But that's in way too deep. I was bigging it up too much, and Murray's corner has bit once again.
That was looking to be a very good lap, but it goes to show you cannot leave anything on the table. And well, if you make one mistake, this track is going to spit you straight back out again. In fact, didn't end up improving upon that lap, and that was pretty much a perfect one. He comes through the final corner, goes a little bit wide, and well, that could actually maybe cost him pole position, because Pfeiffer pretty much only needs half a tenth and a bit in order to improve his position to provisional, to pole position. And de Grasse, yeah, that was a very good lap. Maybe felt a little bit too confident into that final corner, wanted to stretch the gap that little bit more. Maybe he should have just taken it that little bit easier. But again, that is the pressure, and of course, the combination of both pressure and Bathurst is a very, very deadly one indeed. And I think, yeah, this is Pfeiffer going through in towards the Forest elbow, now onto the back straight. Let's see if he can improve. It's going to be it's going to be pretty difficult. We've seen it's going to be really difficult for them to improve, because we've seen how a bottled lap time does cost you quite a bit. But he only needs half a tenth. If he is up, do you think it's just going to be taken easy for this final sector?
I think so indeed. Whilst this pops up, let's not panic. We'll just take a look at what the grid will be. There is still technically 30 seconds left of the session, and so quite close to crossing the line. Max Pfeiffer will be. We'll have a wait and see at the moment if he can take pole position away from Damien de Grasse. Out of the final corner he'll go. It's Tilladina and Alex Mosin on the 2nd row of the grid, with Sven Mackenberg, Marco Sands on row number 3. Max Pfeiffer out of the final corner. We won't catch it as he crosses the line, so we'll only find out by the fact that he just escaped there. I'm going to say that is a very solid no, and de Grasse will be starting this race from pole position. Highest Mustang, Raphael Heinrich there in 14th position. Alex Brown not too far behind him in the battle of the Mustangs. But of course, we're Mustang versus Camaro here, and for this, to me, is looking very much like a Camaro affair.
Yeah, pretty much the entire top 13, I think it was, that was Camaro, and well, the majority of the grid is in a Camaro, so it's to be expected. But it does seem to be the better car because you're not seeing any of those Mustangs towards sort of the front end. So maybe Bathurst is a very nice track that caters to the Camaro's needs, and that's probably why a lot of people are going for it. And it's probably just a battle between the Mustangs because they're the only ones you can compare yourself to. You're in the same car, so as long as you're the top Mustang, that's probably a very good achievement.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I've always liked taking the slight underdog car because that way, if you beat a couple of the stronger vehicle, at least you can go, well, I was in the weaker one. So, everything's a win in that sense. The timer is counting down. We're getting the 30 somewhat cars onto the grid. And get ready for a 100-minute race here at the mountain on the EU Gold server. Lewis McGlade, Zach Sweeney in the commentary booth, but it's DeGrasse and Pfeiffer on the front row. 1 hour, 40 minutes onto the clock as we're about to get underway here at Bathurst. And away at the front of the grid, we're focused here on the back as there's a bit of carnage there. I think Pfeiffer at the front of the grid has got the jump. You can see him there, has already got clear of DeGrasse. Mo's in there trying to almost get past on DeGrasse as well out of Hell Corner as we run onto Mountain Straight, running up the hill. Sven Mackenberg and Marco Sanz also going quite close. There is Sven Mackenberg to the outside going into Griffin's Bend. There's a bit of side-by-side between Duran and Broughtingham. Directly behind, a bit of a dive to the inside there from Sanz looking at Dina. There is still some side-by-side and hooking it through the corner. Duran gets Broughtingham. Look at how tight they are as they all funnel into the cutting for the first time and begin their charge up the mountain.
Very, very clean first lap and a great start from Pfeiffer. It was only, I think it was about 2/100ths of a second that separated them in qualifying, but he got a good run. It's a short one towards turn one, and he managed to make the most of it. And DeGrasse really struggling in this opening stage, but that was probably as clean as you'd like it because they're managing to go 2 by 2 on a track that is very difficult to even go one wide. You can see this is Martin going a little bit wide through in towards the downhill S's, and he's got Attila Diner just on his rear end, pretty much breathing down his neck, and he's going to get a lovely tow down the Conrad Straight, but he just needs to maximize that exit. Going to actually look to the inside maybe as as Alex has to defend in towards Forest Elbow. He's going to have a nice slipstream down this long back straight in towards the chase, and again action down the field. It's going to be pretty much a slipstream train down this down this back straight. Are we going to see any moves?
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see. Did jump back there to Geisler against Shakan for 13th position, back towards the front, and Alex Mosen, who was trying to fire one down the inside of DeGrasse on the opening stage of the race. Now that DeGrasse has got up to speed, Alex Mosen has gone backwards slightly into the clutches of Attila Dina, but no way for Attila Dina to pass. And again, this is how this racetrack works in the opening stages. If you can't get through, you're pretty likely to be under attack by someone else, and Marco Sanz was that driver that was waiting to jump up. Speaking of jumping up the order, up inside the top 10, said the highest Mustang was in 14th spot. It is now in 10th as Raphael Heinrich has got all the way up inside the top 10. So clearly just picking the right line, diving through some of the carnage, now on the back of Sebastian Ray. And with this kind of drive, we don't really know the balance between these two cars, but of course we were speaking of how the Camaro was so much more potent over qualifying. It's not necessarily how it goes over the race, though, is it?
No, for sure. I mean, well, a 100-minute race definitely beats a 2-minute lap in qualifying. So it's all about that consistency, being comfortable in the race, and Heinrich done a great job. Up 4 places around a track is very difficult to overtake. So just dipping and diving his way through the carnage, just making sure he picks a gap, sticks to it, keeping himself out of trouble mainly, and staying consistent for the remainder of this race. It is all about consistency around here because it's all good being quick. If you're hitting a wall every lap, as you know yourself, Lewis, it's going to be very difficult to succeed. I had to throw it in here somewhere, but it is still a very long train of cars that just can't find a gap. They just need to be very opportunistic, set up a good move through the Forest Elbow. Oh, there's a bit of a spinner. Is that Heinrich? No! Talking about consistency, and he's lost it through the dipper.
Yeah, we were bigging him up a little bit. That is quite literally the commentator's curse, if ever I've seen it. Raphael Heinrich into the barrier, drops right down the order. It's just a shame. It's like I say, it's how it goes when you're pushing this hard. All these cars, we're having it noted a couple of times in chat, and we even noticed it a few times in qualifying is that this car around this track looked really, really quite difficult. Very, very unstable. Kind of what you expect to see from a car around here, that getting comfortable with the car is very, very difficult. You almost have to underdrive it to get involved with the rhythm of this intense racetrack, and DeGrasse was actually not one of those. I think Alex Mosin, I think at the front, by the way, DeGrasse is about to drop back behind Alex Mosin, who had closed up coming down the Conrod straight into the rear end of DeGrasse. I don't think that's actually the case. It's just the time loop looks like it's a lot closer than it was. So I'll not panic too much about that. I thought it was very, very close. I did notice that Mosin had closed in a bit of a gap anyway, but it's just one of those circuits where 1, 2, 3 mistakes around the track can really, really cost you, because it's not as if, you know, you're locking up and missing a couple of apexes. Around here, you're completely out of the rhythm.
Oh yeah, it is all about just having that flow, hooking up each apex, and once you mess up one, it really does have a subsequent effect on the next and the next and the next, and it really is just about finding that rhythm, and well, if you're overtaken, that's especially going to sort of knock you out of that rhythm, because overtakes, when you're overtaken, that's just going to breed more overtakes. You're knocked out of that rhythm, people then see you vulnerable, and then see that as an opportunity to go down the inside. We've got a bit of a 3-car train now for the final podium place. It's Attila Dyna on the back of Alex Mosin. You can see kicking up a lot of dirt going down the S's and through the dipper, just trying to again just get as close as he can in sands, and very, very close to the wall. That's going to be a very common theme around here, but you don't want to get too close as to find yourself in it, because, well, 1, 2, 3 small mistakes can add up, but one big mistake is going to see you well and truly out of contention.
Yeah, you can get away with just about scraping the walls over the top. Anything more than a scrape and you're in trouble, big trouble. That's the whole nature. And by scrape, I really do just mean what would be essentially in the real world as knocking a wing mirror off. If you hit the wall harder than that, it's not necessarily the damage which kills you, which it does. It really, really does. You know, you can break your suspension and all that like around here. But it's more so that if you do bounce off the wall, you're more likely to do a spin. Right, you know, you're more likely to at least go 90 degrees to the racetrack and head off, smash into another barrier, potentially be all the way backwards. Now, the real issue with that is we'll see some battling here as they all get very, very tight indeed, as Broughtingham is in the red car under attack from Ray, also trying to get past Duran at the front of this trio of cars. The problem if you're doing that is that you're going to drop to the back of the field, because you've got to essentially do a 3-point turn, as race cars are not known to have the most amount of lock as defensive there from Durant, just trying to cover off Broughtingham, who's going around the outside. And when you do that, coming around Griffin's Bend, Sebastian Ree, the cars behind you are more than likely to fill that gap, and it was super tight between the Camaros around the outside of the cutting, though. That could be a superb move from Sebastian Ree, but no way to make that move stick. Decent bit of side-by-side action there.
Yeah, you always say it takes 2 to tango. Lewis, definitely between the two, a lot of respect. It's hard enough to go 1 wide, let alone 2 wide through a corner like the cut, and they just about managed it. But Ray, on this particular occasion, having to back out of this one, but Broughtingham just wants to find a gap through, on Duran, and in doing so, opens that gap to Ray. Just sneak his nose in, and Ray's going to have to take those opportunistic moves, because there's nowhere really that he can get it done. Being 3rd place in a train of cars, probably one of the worst places to be. Because, you know, the car in front is going to have the slipstream of the car in front, and it's going to be very difficult for you to overtake. But also, I wouldn't want to be in Broughtingham's position, because he's having to look forward as well as back, making sure he covers off his fronts, but also making sure that he can infiltrate Duran's front and find a way through. It seems as though Michael's sort of fallen off slightly off the back of Duran in front, and Ray's going to be looking, well, he has been looking pretty damn quick and pretty racy indeed. This is Dyna to the inside of Mawson in towards the chase. Has he managed to get it stopped? Yes, he has, but Mawson's going to go around the outside. It's going to be the inside for the next part of the corner, and Dyna trying to make these opportunities stick, but he can't quite convert on this particular occasion. Can he get it in towards Murray's the final corner? He's going to send it under brakes, sort of a half effort move just to sort of send the nose in, show that Mawson's there. But again, you have to take these opportunities. Every opportunity you can possibly get, you have to take, because you don't get many around Bathurst.
Yeah, that was a close attempt for Attila Dyna to make that one stick, but Mosin was just a little bit too good on the brakes going down into the tough, tight braking zone at the chase, and was able to hang on to 3rd position as well. I mean, I get the move from Attila Dina to try and look to the inside a little bit. We'll see probably another look here going into Griffin's Bend, but straight back into line because he knows that Mosen's just a little bit too good on the brakes, trying to get him to overdrive the car, trying to get this move done before repeating the situation that you were saying there about Broughtigam earlier, that you don't want to allow Sands to get back involved in this and then be the meat in the sandwich, the filling it were, and sort of looking forwards as well as backwards, which Broughtigam is having to do at the moment. Such a tricky thing to balance around a circuit like this. You're actually better off not focusing on the car behind you. Just focus on what you're doing, which again sounds really, really easy to say and much, much harder to do. But around here, honestly, that's how you keep people behind you, because you can't, genuinely, you cannot pass around this track, with the exception of into Griffin's Bend, into the chase, and then into the first and final corner, which means that after Griffin's Bend, all the way around to Forest Elbow, you shouldn't care what's behind you. If you're following the racing line, if you're doing what you're doing, then you don't need to worry about what's behind you, because it's still behind you. It's not going to dive it down the inside dangerously. They want to get to the finish as much as you do, although I've seen some pretty silly moves, but that would be a step too far, I think.
Perhaps so, but you can see Broughtigam, well, clearing the grass to try and find a way through to the inside of this fast. I think the fastest corner on the circuit is going to be the outside braking zone for the chase. Can Durham send it back up the inside? He can, but Broughtigam's going to take this opportunity. He goes over the grass, and Ream just trying to find a way through. Look at them. Well, nose to tail, all three of them. Now Ream's going to look to the left-hand side of the final corner. Can he get under brakes? It's going to be one of these opportunistic moves. He's going to have to try and go for the move, and he does. But Broughtigam has that outside momentum, goes all the way around the outside. But the more they battle, the more Machuca behind is actually closing in, and this could turn into a 3-horse race and then into a 4. But Ree, once again, they're still during Broughtigam and Ree as they were a couple of corners ago, and I find it very hard to believe that. But it is a 1.1 kilometre straight down this mountain straight in towards Griffin's Bend. Ree has got the slipstream, but so too does Broughtigam. Is he closing enough in order to put that pressure on? You can see Broughtigam sort of looking in his mirrors. Ree just having to go for a look, fill his mirrors, say to Michael, you know, I am here. I will go for a move if you give me that opportunity. But for now, and probably until his next opportunity down the Conrad Straight, it's going to be having to tuck in to the slipstream and just make sure he maximises it. But it is now that 4-car train we were talking about.
Yeah, some of this is like I say, it's just about being patient, to be perfectly honest. You don't want to overdrive, overextend yourself, overextend everyone else. You kind of, if you're not able to get through, you want the car ahead of you to just start doing some decent lap times and follow them. Speaking of decent lap times, by the way, at the moment, the race leader, Max Pfeiffer, leads by 2.1 seconds over the grass after the first 10 minutes of the race. Mosen, Dina and Sands behind that, all in that quite tight battle. And we've got Mackenberg, Duran, Broughtigam and Ray that was currently on the screen. Machuca rounds out the top 10. Plenty of battles as look at that, just a little bit too deep there and trying to hold this defensive line. Broughtigam's nearly found his way through, and Duran this time out of a Forest Elbow and onto the Conrad Straight. It might well work. This was a carbon copy of what happened the lap prior, where these two were going side by side down into the chase. This time though, it's looking like Broughtigam's carrying a bit more speed. You can see the speed differential between them there at the bottom in that battle graphic. And finally, Broughtigam has made that position up. Machuca though getting involved in the mix and getting past Ree as well in the background. Fantastic move.
Incredibly opportunistic. He's only just joined this battle, and he's done to Ree what Ree could not do to Broughtigam in the space of a couple of corners. But Ree's going to send it back up the inside. Machuca says, no, you don't. Goes around the outside. And oh my, is that Duran getting back past Broughtigam? And it is indeed. There's a bit of contact. Oh, they're 3 abreast. There's contact, and they've just about managed to get away with that. How have they managed to get away with that? That was very, very elbows out indeed. Ree back up the inside of Hell Corner. Machuca around the outside. They're going to be tucking back into the slipstream, and Duran is not going to want Broughtigam to stay in front for much longer. Machuca definitely getting his elbows out. They are all getting their elbows out. In a 4-car fight around Bathurst, you can only just about expect that to be happening.
Yeah, fantastic stuff. And you can see the train also closing in on all of this. So I don't think we're going to be staring at just these 4. What a fantastic battlers behind as well. I think that's Deek defending from Shachan as well. And Geisler's not too far away. Sergio Barnerez also very, very close with Vera as well. Hey, Mackenzie might be as well a part of this train. They're not that far back as there is Sergio Barnerez. And I get the feeling this train is going to be getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Looking a little bit further down the order, plenty of drivers taking part in this race, and we should give everyone their plaudits for doing so around such a difficult venue. But crikey, that was mighty difficult. Whilst we're doing it though, again, I know we're in the early stages, and we'll be doing this a couple of more times throughout the race. Just for anyone jumping in to the broadcast at this point, there is a giveaway. You can check out in the description as well if you can't understand what I'm saying, because I don't sound like I'm an Australian. But you can get yourself a RaceRoom branded Thrustmaster T248 wheel by going into the chat, !T248, and then you can get yourselves into the raffle, into the giveaway to take part, and that will be announced at the end of this race. We will announce that just after the race is finished, as there is Shakan down the inside of Deacon, maybe making that move stick all the way around the outside, the final part of the chase. Absolutely superb.
Brilliant move. Deke's not going to want that to be sticking for much longer. Going to go back up the inside, a very common theme that we've been seeing, and you can see Shakan having to go immediately to the left-hand side, got on a really poor run, and straight away Deke has managed to counter-attack this. This is guys that just behind as well, going to want to go to the inside, late under brakes and towards turn one. Shakan goes around the outside, uses that momentum, keeps him pinned to the inside, a bit of wheel bang in between the two, and well, Shakan's going to have the slipstream from Deke in front as they go down, but you can just see that is Durka just behind, practically pushing him down this straight, getting a bit of a bump draft maybe in the slipstream, and as Shakan has been absolutely mugged, and he's lost three positions in just as many corners, going back up the inside there. They're going to run side by side in towards the cut, and this is great racing between these guys, and this train is only going to grow and grow, because the more you battle, the more time you lose, and the more people you're going to get to invite into this train. That is a spin, that is Duran round, is it? And that was bound to happen amongst this train, and because of the track is so narrow, you can see he's having to do it well, as you say, a 3-point. So I'm going to have to wait for the traffic to come in. That was a quick reflex, and well, it's all kicking off now, Lewis.
Yeah, absolutely. Did well to slam on the brakes. There's Hennig and Andreasen coming through, as well as one of the Camaros as well, bashing his way through. That one being West. Speaking of bashing his way through, there's a little bit of contact between these two over the top, between Shakan and Machuca, as well as Vera and Mackenzie at the rear end of this train. Big gap back now to Alex Brown, who's sat in 16th position at the moment, the highest placed Mustang. I'm sure we'll be still pretty proud of that, as very much defensive there was Gabor Shakan, just holding that very defensive line down into Forest Elbow, trying to represent the Jamie Whincup fans among you, who obviously remember him defending like that in 2014 against Chaz Mostert in the final moment of the Bathurst 1000, which is an absolutely sensational race, by the way. A bit too crash out, but yeah, it's Bathurst. So it goes. Again, leading by over 2 seconds, by the way, as Pfeiffer. Did notice that gap came down to about 1.5, but then Pfeiffer's responded to drag it out. It's back under 2 seconds, but just kind of hovering around that, just as they're differing speeds around the race circuit. There's Machuca looking back to the inside of Shakan. No way through in this massive six-car train as Machuca runs wide. This might be the position switch, as Vera should be able to get down the inside, running down into Hell Corner, although side by side here it's not normally ideal. Out onto the curb, actually, I get the feeling that Machuca's going to hang on here.
He is indeed, and we've seen that outside line be very, very beneficial. And now you can see Mackenzie and Vera going to run side by side in the exact same livery car, 2x2, but one of them, and that's going to be Vera getting the slipstream from Machuca in front. That's going to give him the upper hand in towards Griffin's Bend. He is ahead and under braking. Mackenzie doesn't have much to say about that one, and he manages to hang on. But again, he runs a little bit wide. Mackenzie's going to say thank you very much. And once again, they were going to run side by side in towards the cut, but Mackenzie says, you know what, I would rather get to the finish line than risk going for a move for P14. But yeah, the more you fight, the larger the train is going to get, and it is very large indeed. But at the front, Pfeiffer and DeGrasse have just sort of reached a stalemate. They've sort of, well, Pfeiffer managed to open that gap up a little bit, but now DeGrasse has sort of leveled up with the pace. I say that the gap is really fluctuating, but on average, staying around the 2.1 second mark.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is very much a controlled drive at the moment from Max Pfeiffer, who's just making sure that he knows where his rival is at the moment and not driving it too much above that. And that's a wise call, especially from a driver so young, to not overstretch yourself. It's so easy to do, to come to a racetrack like this and think, do you know what? No, I will push to the limit at all times. It's always good to be driving around at 96, 97%, have that little bit extra that you can dish out if you need it, but not pushing it too fast. Because let's be honest, if you crash whilst you're pushing at 100% when you didn't need to, you very much are a fool. That's why when I hit the wall, it was okay, because I actually needed to push that hard. Okay, so that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. 2.2 seconds, though, is the gap to grass, starting yet another lap, the 10th one of running, meaning we'll be completing 60 kilometres done in this race already this time by. So the lap's ticking away, but with an hour and 20 minutes left on the clock. Again, the expectation for there to be a pit stop, probably more so in the later second half of the race, so more so with 40 minutes left to go. So we'll keep our eye on that. Finally, by the way, as we jump back to the battle for third, Attila Dina has got up into third place, and I'm going to assume only one thing could have happened there, because it was about a second gap the last time I checked, that Alex Mosen has made a mistake departing Hell Corner.
Definitely is a good explanation. We've seen drivers get caught up over the cab. It just ruins your momentum. And we've said before, rhythm and momentum really go hand in hand around Bathurst. You need both of them in order to succeed. And, well, if you've got a poor run down a 1.1 kilometre straight, it's going to be very tough to keep that position. And finally, Dyna's found a way through. It's been a long time coming. They're still in this three-car train with Dyna, Mustang and Sands, though. And, well, any three of them can really maximize off this. He's going to still be in that crucial slipstream range. Just needs to maximize his run off the Forest Elbow and get that run down the Conrod straight. And again, just stick with him in the slipstream. Do enough through the corners, do enough up the hill, whatever it might be, and just manage to claw enough of that gap back down through down this straight when you pretty much have free time. You're tucked up in that slipstream. Dyna's doing all the hard work, moving that very draggy air out of the way and giving you a nice clean pocket behind. Just literally just close that gap up by a couple of tenths. And Dyna still, he's got the move done, but he's been waiting a long time for it. He needs to keep it now, and Mostyn's going to be filling his mirrors, making sure he doesn't keep it.
Yeah, Tiladina is going to try and pull away at the moment. One of the drivers of MRS Esports, they've picked up quite a few over the last few, let's go with year and a bit. They've got some fantastic talents in their arsenal, including more so from my neck of the woods, 2019 Cooper Sim Racing Series champion Alexander Dornadon as part of the MRS Esports squad, as well with the likes of Attila Dina, Markovic, and plenty of other fantastic drivers, including our race leader, Max Fiver, who's a part of that squad as well. So looking very good for them. I know they're not doing this under team branding and whatnot, but still a positive vibe inside the team. Those two starting to make waves a little bit on the sim racing scene, and right now Attila Dina just heading this train. But let's be honest, Alex Mosen hasn't gone anywhere and knows he has the pace to be ahead. I mean, if you look at the lap times there, the fastest lap between the two of them actually goes the way of Alex Mosen at a 2:03.605. Attila Dina's was a 2:03.736. Oh, that's a clip into the barrier there from Alex Mosen. Might be a little bit of a wake-up call. Whilst there's not too much dirty air, it's not necessarily the dirty air that's the killer around here. It's just following the car ahead. If they go slightly wide, where they're going to just brush the wall nicely and hook it up beautifully over the top, well, you're probably going in it if you're focusing on them. You must drive within yourself.
You have to look at the apexes in front, see your braking points, because yeah, if the car runs slightly wide, more than likely you are going to follow their line, and more than likely it's going to end up worse for you. But luckily, I'd say that's probably the maximum you can get away with. He's going to have to be treading very carefully from here on out, is Alex Mosen. But as you say, yeah, we've seen cars with overwhelming pace catch up to a train, get through, but once they're in front, just not be able to pull the gap. And that is the exact same theme here with Attila Dina and Alex Mosen, because yeah, maybe Dina's got the consistently, quicker pace. Alex Mosen, he's there, he's still keeping him honest, and any mistake from Dina, bottling under pressure or whatever, can definitely be, invite Mosen back into this race. Science, at the start of this lap, was around about 1.5 seconds back on Mosen. He's just about managed to close it in with a couple of car lengths. So, yeah, the gaps really do fluctuate, because one small mistake can really be exaggerated and lose you a good couple of attempts, because if you make a slight mistake and go wide, you're going to make sure you correct it enough as to not see yourself go into the wall. This is Mosen having to look in his mirrors, going sort of to the middle of the track. I don't think Sign's got the overwhelming slipstream or the slingshot in order to go for the move in towards Griffin Bend, but it goes to show that Sands is putting that pressure on and getting inside his head.
It shows, though, the level of quality, despite this car being very, very difficult to drive, and probably some of these drivers not approaching it with the most amount of practice, to be perfectly honest, to give them their own representative levels. Some of them just kind of throw it into this. They'll do the practice before it and nothing more than that. They'll just do that, do the qualifying and get in, knowing this car is difficult around one of the hardest tracks in the world, and seeing how, to be honest, how few issues that we've seen, particularly obviously up here in the top 10 where we've been focused, but even behind that when we've jumped back down there. Whilst, yes, we've seen a couple of cars into the barriers already in the early stages, including Heinrich, who's now down, by the way, in 28th position, about a minute and a bit off our race leader, but still driving around. Everything's been fairly well behaved for the most part, and everyone's driven well within themselves, which shows the quality of the field, as we'll see Geisler for a time on this broadcast defending a little bit from Machuca back to this train, which has split apart and splintered a little bit in the last sort of 10-15 minutes of this race. But at the moment, Geisler still keeping Machuca at bay, keeping Vera at bay, and Mackenzie, whilst had done a great job to close up into this train, hasn't really got the pace to stick with it, it seems. So it's more just a focus on these three at the moment.
For the moment, yeah, but as soon as they start battling, we've seen how quickly cars behind can close up a good 2-3 seconds gap and then get themselves right involved in the mix. This is a very, very long train as well. This is Torres and Jota down the Conrad Straight as well, and you can just see the race is sort of broken up into pockets of 3 or 4 cars in their own sort of little battles, their own little skirmishes. And well, we've got a big gaggle of cars, big density of cars in one place, and a sort of a big gap to the next few, and then a big gap to the next few. It's really just sort of spread out into everyone's sort of own little settlements, really. Just they're all staying station with each other, not really letting each other go, and you sort of got to stay with people that are around your pace. You can then pace yourself with them and sort of just sort of stay with them and well, battle for who you're really going to be battling with, because yeah, as much as you say you might not be well, if you battle then you're going to lose time, and if you don't, you might be able to catch the guys in front, but if you don't have the pace to, it's going to be very, very difficult indeed. This is the fight then for P17. And well, it is pretty much a 5-car, maybe even a 6-car train once they start battling.
Yes, the old classic, especially here at Bathurst. You could throw a few other race circuits into the mix with this one in that vein of the likes of Monte Carlo, the likes of, that's a little bit deep there, and I think that might be a position given up from Philip Mathers. And dropping a little bit further back, and maybe even into Duran, who's got a very damaged Camaro. Yeah, the likes of Monte Carlo, the likes of the Nordschleifer, of these circuits which you can't really just go out there and attack from the off. You have to build yourself up into it. You have to go from lap to lap, just starting low, building your speed up, respecting the race circuit. Oh, this is a bit more than respecting. Oh, look at this side-by-side, absolutely superb from Machuca and Geisler. A little bit of a brush there, running through the dipper, and coming out on top in that one is still Machuca, who's defending from Geisler, looking back to the inside, going into the dipper. That might well have cost the run, departing the dipper onto the 2-kilometre straight down into the chase. So maybe not the wisest call to have sent it down there, but brilliant to jump back and see in the side-by-side. That's not normally a place we see it.
No, not at all. We've seen the common theme of overtaking to be in the chase and the final corner and the first corner, maybe as well Griffin's Bend, but never ever through the tight and twisty section of the dipper and then in towards the Forest Elbow. But it has invited Vera onto the back of this train. He's just sort of being that third car. You can't again find a way through. You can hardly go 2 cars abreast, and if you try and make it 3, well, 1 if not all of you are going to be ending up in a wall. But a good run through the final corner for Vera. He's going to want to get himself 1 position higher. And don't forget, Mackenzie is not too far adrift either, just over a second behind this fight. And well, down the mountain straight, 1.1 kilometers. He's going to have a lovely run using that momentum. He's tucked up nicely in the slipstream. Can he get the run in towards turn 2? He's around about 2 attempts, and we've seen gaps larger than that close. But maybe is he too close in order to get that full benefit of the slipstream? And of course, Geisler is going to have the benefit of Machuca in front and nothing in towards the second turn. But we are being treated to a good couple of battles around a track where you wouldn't expect much overtaking.
No, absolutely not. I thankfully bailed from commentating from it when we did the Bathurst 12-hour at the start of the year elsewhere in sim racing. I won't say which platform, but you can take a guess. And I was going to do the commentary for it, but then I was like, do you know what? I'd rather do it. I'd rather go and race it. And so I did. and it was a train, because at that level, all these drivers were incredibly talented, but they'd all put in so much practice where they don't make mistakes, not even little ones. And the thing is with that, is that's really boring, because they're all just driving around in a train. No one's able to make a move. It's a very, very difficult track to pass at. You wouldn't normally say it, but let's be honest, if you do see moves 9 times out of 10 around here, it's going to be a fairly boring move into Griffins or into the chase. It's great to see in this race that we've seen a bold move basically everywhere, jumping back to a side-by-side bit through the S's down into the Dipper. I have not seen that often. I've seen a few moves down there. They're very, very rare, and so what a special treat we're in for. And again, we're only in the first half an hour of this race, so that to tick over into the hour and 10-minute mark, meaning we've completed 30 minutes of the running here at the Bathurst 100 here on RaceRoom. And like I say, it's been an interesting start to the race. Sven Mackenberg was quite close to the rear end of this train at one point and was closing in, but unfortunately hasn't seemed to have the pace. The virtual drivers by TX3 Man, and I think will struggle to close back up. And I get the feeling he might actually have a little bit of a drive by himself, because Broughtigam is a solid 7 and a bit seconds behind, and he himself in turn is 2 and a bit seconds clear of Ryu's, a few seconds clear of Deek as well, who, by the way, Deek's done fantastic as Shakan gets past Sao Barnares down at 10th place, but there is that battle continuing. I think Sao Barnares has actually got just ahead of that little battle. They switched briefly, and I think that was probably just the first corner of the track, probably a little bit of a dive too far, which is very easy to do.
Indeed it is, and I think the moves we're seeing, the battles we're seeing, well, we say, 1 times out of 10 maybe a driver will go for it, and 9 times out of those, 1 out of 10 times it usually ends in disaster. So I think the fact we haven't had a major crash going side by side highlights just the sheer driver quality we've got on this field. We're really getting treated to a good race around Bathurst, but at the moment, yeah, the likes of De Grasse and well, Mackenberg have just sort of, they're in no man's land. They're doing their own thing. They're just sort of by themselves. They've probably hardly got a car in sight, unless it's a back marker or maybe someone in the distant distant background in their mirror. It's a completely different story for others such as Bathurst and Torres and others, because they're well and truly integrated into these battles, and Duran is going to want to try and make up for that little bit of a spin he had earlier on and get himself back into the top 19. He's got a few cars in front of him, and he's going to see that as a few cars to get through, but that cannot be helping his visibility one bit to have that bonnet sticking up.
Yeah, Duran is really struggling there with visibility. Naturally, you can see it there, by the way, at the bottom of your screen, Master. I've said this before, and I say it time and time again. Whilst we have a race for our drivers, we also have a race to redeem this code, which you can go and do so in the RaceRoom portal. As there comes the dive down the inside from Duran, superb from both of them. To see it coming from Matters was really impressive. Wasn't quite as impressive in running wide, but did spot the gap that the Hungarian was going for. This code on your screen, if you can redeem it, it is a race to go and do it, and I'm pretty sure someone with very quick fingers has already been able to pull that trick off. We'll have a couple of these throughout, so keep your eye on the broadcast. It's for 500 VRP, the currency on RaceRoom, so you can go and get that done and redeem yourself a couple of cars, maybe even a track or two, and get yourselves racing once again, especially if you're getting started. But again, it's not the only giveaway that we have. Always there was a bit of a moment. Who was that? It was Broughtigam that was round somewhere on the mountain and has dropped down, has retired from the race along with Jota. 2 retirements from this race in the early stages. Very unfortunate indeed. The other giveaway, by the way, of course, you know it already, the Thrustmaster T248, which you can go and do by posting in chat. Had so many people already jumping into the raffle for that as well. It's going to be fantastic, and what a victory it is for those who are jumping into sim racing for the first time. To give you a little bit of an understanding as to what happens here on RaceRoom, is that it's a great place to get started. You've got ranked and general server racing, which you can just go and do, opening up the game and opening up the server list and jumping in. Very easy to do. The ranked ones, you're more likely to get up against drivers linked to the level of quality of yourself, and you can learn from them. You go on to a public one, then, well, who knows what you'll come across. But then also there's the competition system where you've got your competitions, the likes of the Cupra Sim Racing Series and plenty others, of course, at the moment, the ADAC GT Masters Esports Championship, along with the GT4s, which they've done a qualifying to get into. I believe the final round of that is on next week. Cupra Sim Racing Series got 2 more rounds left to go, one at the Bilsterberg and one at Macau, which will be pretty tricky indeed. You can get yourselves qualified into those, and there's plenty of servers racing in some of these championships, which for someone to jump into sim racing for the first time, it's places like this which are really, really good steps to learn sim racing. And that's kind of what we need, Zach, in sim racing sometimes, is as Alex Mosen loses the rear a little bit there coming out of the cutting. We need those places for new drivers, new people completely fresh into sim racing to jump in and get their first couple of races under their belt.
For sure, and it can be a very daunting experience, especially, you know, there's some very, well, we don't ever welcome them, but, you know, the elitists, they won't give you the time of day if you don't know what you're talking about when it comes to sim racing, and we need these welcoming environments where people can dabble in their foot, see if they like it, and carry on if they do enjoy it, and just sort of, you know, you're not going to be esports level pace when you first jump on. It's just about finding your feet and getting into rank lobbies like this when you're where you're against people that are your own pace, and you can sort of improve, learn well with them. And a lot of the sim racing community is a very, very nice place. You can go ask questions, ask for advice, setups, track guides, whatever it might be. There is a plethora of help and guidance when it comes to sim racing, and yeah, it is, well, for some people it can be very daunting to get started in, but for others, you know, if you know where to look, it is one of the, well, it's a very welcoming place to be. But this fight for P3 still raging on between Dana, Mohsin and Sands. They are very, very close indeed, and Sands even had maybe was going to have a little look, but again, it's just about that momentum and getting that drive off the off the Forest elbow.
Yeah, looks quite close to making a move there after that mistake from Alex Mosen. Obviously running out of the cut-in, just dropped it a little bit too wide, picked up some of the dirty stuff and nearly dropped the rear, managed to pick it up quite nicely, and guess that is very, very easy to do. But the problem is, if you're doing it at that end of the racetrack, you're almost protecting yourself, because there was no way for Marco Sands to get through, just based on the fact that going side by side is ill-advised at the best of times, let alone over the top of a tight and twisted track. So Sands had nowhere to go. And I think that's testament to Sands' ability, because if he'd have dived at the inside, he would have had every right to dive at the inside, as there's another moment from Alex Mosen, who's looking clearly at the edge of his talent level. Always there was Sands following in the same footsteps, and now this trio is spread apart massively. Had Sands gone down the inside, he'd have every right to get down there. It just wouldn't have been wise, and he's thinking about the long game here.
Yeah, and it's just about getting to the finish line, just trying to be there or thereabouts when it comes to the checkered flag. You have to be in a position to win, to actually win, and if you're halfway down the grid, you know, in 15th after a spin, after sending it a bit too desperately, it's not going to be it's just not the best place to finish it. And it's just being patient. Patience is the best thing around this track.
Hey, your dogs are barking, son.
They are.
The old classic. Of course, this is the joy of broadcasting and such, is that we do have our own issues, and trust me, my dogs have also been barking and such, and at various points of other broadcasts, so very relatable there. But regardless, focused on the race at hand, and a battle with Sergio Barnerez, who's sat in 9th position with Dika ahead, with Shakan directly behind. They've pulled a bit of a gap, as Machuca has, after we saw that fantastic side-by-side with Geisler running down the mountain. But I think Machuca's been able to pull a very, very healthy gap, but now Geisler's dropped back into the clutches of Mackenzie, back with Duran, who's had one issue over the top, who's had a second issue over the top, and this one, in real life, we've seen plenty of cars having that issue. And there's some more battling. Shakan into the side of Sergio Barnerez, and now into the barrier himself, manages to just avoid it.
No, he doesn't. He just has a bit of a tap to the barrier.
There, yeah.
Has to find reverse to find that one, as Andrea Torres, I think, also got a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That's not going to be helping his advance. But yeah, these things happen. Just a bit of a tap. These cars are relatively sensitive. I mean, we've seen a bit of door banging, wheel banging here and there, just to top it off. But Yeah, they can be sensitive if you tag them in the wrong place and around you go, but Mackenzie is going to want to try and get past guys there as quick as he can. He's in the slipstream. He's got a long back straight in order to do it. He's tucked up nicely. He's going to try and use that slingshot and close at a rate of knots, guys. So he's going to be looking in his mirrors. He knows he's there. Can Mackenzie send it to brakes? Under the brakes, he's going to look to the right-hand side. Can he be late enough? Can he be committed enough? He is going to go for it. The fight for P11 down the inside. Guys there tries it around the outside, tries to go for the switcheroo, but Mackenzie just claims the corner and was ahead cleanly and is now coming out in towards the cutting ahead. A very, very nice move.
And like I say, Mackenzie is just trying to find some speed at the moment, and had been a part of the train that dropped back off and closed back in, and now is marching towards a potential top 10, as we've seen a couple of drivers now bitten by this racetrack, and that's naturally what we expect around here. But now things are starting to get a little bit more comfortable. We'll go through very quickly the top 10. That Max Pfeiffer is leading by 5 seconds over the grass. Such a tight battle in qualifying, not translating into a tight battle in the race. Pfeiffer is running away. Has a little bit of lap traffic here to navigate. I think this might be Van der Vaart, who's directly ahead in that Mustang. You can see how fast Pfeiffer's been. A 202.6 plays. Plenty of other. I think there's another 202 in this, being De Grasse's, but everyone else has been battling in the 203s, 204s and beyond, as Jasper Van der Vaart does get out of the way and allows Max Pfeiffer to go through and continue leading this race. De Grasse, Attila Diener now onto the podium and pulled a 1.7 second gap to Alex Mosin, and then Marco Sanz rounds out the top 5. Sven Mackenberg completely by himself, 11 seconds behind him is Sebastian Ray with Deek, so de Barnerez, and then Machuca, your top 10 positions at the moment. Back to the closest battle within that, and that is between Alex Mosin and Marco Sanz, and nothing has happened just yet. You can see Attila Diener there going through shot, managing to pull away. Obviously these two were very separated, very separate not too long ago, after a couple of mistakes from Mosin and Sanz. Now things are starting to get a little bit closer for between 4th and 5th, but not between 3rd and 4th. It seems like Attila Diener has taken that advantage and has run away with it.
You've got to capitalise on it. Maybe back the person in 2nd in the train to the person in 3rd. Once they start having a bit of a squabble, this is then your opportunity to get in front, capitalise upon that, and he's managed to open that gap up to, well, just under 2 seconds now, which is a nice little gap. You can't get complacent. Any small thing can bring that gap right back down, but still Sanz has got some good pace over Musin, but it is just so difficult to overtake. He's being patient, but is there such thing as perhaps too patient? Maybe he just needs to go for the move, get through, and if he has got the pace, can probably go and catch for the podium.
The problem with being, like you say, you're absolutely right, there is a problem with being too patient, is that when it comes time to go, right, we need to go for this move now, where'd you go? You've been so patient. You kind of think, oh, I've been driving around at 98%. I can just turn it up to 100 and get going. But you've got into such a rhythm at 98% that actually turning it up is not a simple, well, I'll just go a little bit faster kind of thing. The equation's much more complicated than that. And so for that step, it's just not easy. And so realistically speaking, I think you just have to get on with it. You have to get on with it, have to get that move done. There's less than an hour to go in this race now. We've already completed 40 minutes. And so for Marco Sanz, if he has any aspirations of grabbing a podium here today, he's got to get by Alex Mosin ASAP and start closing down to Attila Diener, who is getting smaller and smaller and smaller on that horizon all of the time. Looking backwards from Alex Mosin, still no move from Sanz, still very, very close. But I think you're right. I think he's just got to find a way through now. He really has to get on with this.
Force the gap, fill the mirrors, look to the inside, send a move that you're not really actually going for, and just sort of make Mosin look in his mirror and say, hey, he's probably going to go for a move. You should probably give him some space and make him be on the cautious side. Play the mental game. You can see he's doing the right thing. He's being literally breathing down his neck, down that rear bumper of the Camaro in front, and just make sure that Mosin's mirrors are completely full of that black car that is Sanz, and just make sure that he has the upper hand in terms of the mental game. Maximize every corner exit, find any gap that he can, even if he doesn't want to go for a move. If a gap opens that Mosin goes a little bit deep, fill it, so then Mosin knows that you will go for the move. if the opportunity arises. And then he's not focusing on his pace. He's focusing on you, looking in his mirrors, being all nervous, being all tentative, and making sure he doesn't make a mistake. And 9 times out of 10, if you're focusing so hard on not making a mistake, you will probably make a mistake. And that's where Sands can capitalize. And then if he has got the overwhelming pace, we haven't seen his true pace in clean air just yet. He's closed up to Alex in front, but you know, you have that killer instinct when you want to chase something, especially a podium at a place like Bathurst. Sands is going to want to get through, and he probably will have very good pace if he does.
The thing is, though, obviously with Bathurst, slipstream is a key factor here, and that's what's allowing Marco Sands to keep up with Alex Moser. Because if you watch them over the top now, yes, of course, you could argue that once ahead, maybe would clear off a little bit more. But the problem is that over the top, Marco Sands is not remaining close enough to the back of Alex Mosin. Mosin's very, very good from Griffins all the way around. It's just the slipstream that's dragging Marco Sands to the rear end of that Camaro, the orange one that is being piloted by Alex Mosin. And the gap is getting bigger and bigger, 2.5 seconds now up the road to Attila Diener, as I think Sven Mackenberg has had an issue. He's actually coming to the pit lane. Big issue. It's not really. We were expecting a pit stop. And now this is an early pit stop. You saw him going onto the jacks as well. Sven Mackenberg has taken the opportunity with an hour left to go in this race to try and go and do some undercutting. And I like this vibe. A driver who was by himself completely. The only way that he can get involved in the racing is by either going much quicker, much slower, or coming into the pit lane and trying something wildly different. I like the gamble. Let's see if someone else bites.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I mean, we've seen gaps can close very quickly. If there is a bit of a train in front of him, he can close that and will have a bit of pace. This is side by side between Geyser and Mackenzie. Mackenzie going around the outside of Griffins. A very nice move to get him into the top 10. And Geyser can't really say much about that at all. But Mackenzie does go in deep, rides the wall all the way around. So Geyser going to say thank you very much, get himself back ahead. Mackenzie's hard work is all undone. As soon as he got through, just got a bit impatient, went a bit too deep over, well, just pretty much rode the wall all the way around and lost that position once again. But yeah, it's different from Mackenberg. He just needs to try and capitalize off it, make no mistakes, and make those fresh tyres do their thing. He's going to have better pace than those that are going to be on worn tyres, because if they don't take tyres, that's going to be an hour and 40 minutes on those tyres. They're going to be very, very worn indeed.
Picotto there going side by side, I believe, and that was with Hyde, who's now diving it back down the inside, very, very close with Luis there, and nearly making a bit more contact as well on the exit of the cutting. Further up, I will say, with great stuff, it was obviously a defensive move from Mackenzie to try and hold off from Geisler into Griffin's Bend, and then running around into the cutting, just threw it in way, way, way too hard. These drivers have been promoted, obviously, up into a battle for 10th place, courtesy of Sven Mackenberg, who is out of the pit lane. Now, let's keep our eye on this gap. Now, I don't think he's targeting a win here, but obviously from this has lost around 40, 45, 50 seconds, which then actually tells me that probably everyone's going to change tyres, because that is a very short pit stop. If there was tyres changed on, whether it was fronts, rears and whatnot, I'm sure we'll get some info on that at some point. But either way, has ticked off a pit stop, and the expected required pit stop over this race has come out in 17th position. The gap is hovering around about 1 minute and 14 seconds. Now let's see if that gap comes down any to the race leaders, because obviously if it comes down to the race leaders, it'll be coming down a lot to that battle for the podium with Attila Diener at the front of it. Back to the battle between Sergio Barnerez and Deek, as they'll run their way side by side through the cutting, as they were very, very tight indeed. It's Sergio Barnerez close to the wall there, almost pushing out Deek all the way out into the barrier, running through Quarry, and there was, Deek did hit the barrier there, going through Reed Park, and now coming through the mix. This is a back marker, just trying to find his way through all of this, and that wasn't a back marker, that was Machuca who got through.
Yeah, well, he just goes, again, momentum. He lost that momentum going through Quarry, tapped the barrier, and that lost him a chunk of time. He's lost that position to Machuca, of course, and he is sliding. He might have suffered a bit of damage, or his tyres are overheating or something. But yeah, now he has got he's got a load of cars now finding their way through, and he's losing a lot of time. He's lost 1.3 to Machuca, let alone what he's lost to Benares in front. And you can just see that visible gap between himself and the car he was literally just fighting a few corners ago. It was a great bit of side-by-side action But again, it's just so tight. Sometimes 2 into 1 doesn't go no matter how hard you try.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think the Ford was Hogdelinger who went through, and I believe this Camaro behind, not for position. I believe that is Torres, who sat directly on the rear end of Deke. So not for position. But Machuca, who came through, was definitely for position, no question about that one. So it's just how it goes around here. You can get sort of thrown into everyone else's mess. Now, whilst we saw Sven Mackenberg come into the pit lane, Marco Sanz has also decided that now is the time to dive into the pit lane. So we're deep into the pit window. It does seem as we approach the halfway point here in the Bathurst 100 here on RaceRoom Ranked Racing. And on the gold server, things have been interesting, have been fairly tame. Max Pfeiffer's just doing his own thing at the front and continuing to pull out more and more of a gap. It's now 5 seconds, 5.7 seconds it was briefly there to Damien DeGrasse, but obviously the gaps fluctuate a fair amount naturally with how timesheets and stuff work. Either way, Pfeiffer's leading. I think he's not going to respond and come down the pit lane until he wants to. Now, maybe that pit stop for him is at the halfway point race. Maybe we will see him in this lap. If not, he might just take the fuel tank and tyres as far as they'll go because he seems so in control, unless DeGrasse does something radical here. Back with West, who's on the rear end of that very, very green car that you can't miss of Sven Mackenberg.
Yeah, I mean, for Pfeiffer, he's pulled up the gap in the first stint to pretty much have full control over his pit window and his, well, there's not much DeGrasse can do in the way of pulling an undercut. It's not like he's 1 second behind or something like that, but this is a very, very close battle indeed. This is Mackenberg on the back of Mathis going through the very fast left-hander in towards the downhill. You dip that back down the hill, very easy for the car to go light, very hard to follow a car through. Then just behind this is, well, just behind West and Sands. They're pretty much bumper to bumper, these four. They're going to be fighting quite hard to find a way through. But, yeah, for Pfeiffer, he has full control over what he can do. It's not like DeGrasse is 1 second behind and he might get an undercut. Oh, that is a big crash between two cars. Bit of a pile-up. One of them tries to get on. This is this West? No, this is Vera. Yeah, he's gone round and tagged with one of the Mustangs.
That one's Andreasen, who he made contact with. That is a shame. For them two, as well as everyone in this train who definitely had to get onto the brakes. Let's look at the pace differential though between Philip Mathers and Sven Mackenberg, as now we'll try go around the outside all the way around, but not going to make that one stick, as well as one of the Mustangs. That will be Alex Brown at the head of this little train. A bit of a bump there from Sven Mackenberg as Alex Brown comes into the pit lane. Sven Mackenberg getting around the outside. That was not for at all from Mathers. Decided to back out of that one. I think Alex Brown's had a bit of an issue there on the entrance into pit lane. Sven Mackenberg needed to clear this train. Look at the pace difference. He's been able to do at some point in this race at the early stages a 2:03.4. Everyone else was doing 2:04s as their fastest laps, and mid 2:04s at that. Now, what that tells me is if they're going slower at the moment because they're on older tyres, means that gap, that pace differential is even higher. So Sven really needed to clear that group and has actually lost a fair amount of time to the tune of a few seconds to the race leaders, and probably a little bit more so to the group that he was battling with as well. So certainly not ideal for Sven Mackenberg, but thankfully now we're in the pit window. Other drivers are also coming into the pit lane. He's well ahead of Sands.
He is, yeah, and he's managed to come in and get out. It's what now, 4 seconds between himself and Sands. But the thing is, at least he's cleared the traffic. He's got into clean air. Other drivers will fall into these little pockets of cars, 3, 4 cars long, and then have to fight their way through, as did Mackenberg. And while Mackenberg has got the advantage of those fresher tyres propelling his way through, and he did have, well, he got through relatively quickly for Bathurst standards. We've seen drivers struggle to get through stint-long battles, but this is Sands on the back of Vera as he goes through Skyline towards the S. It's a bit of a tap, turn a bit too early, and that's very easy to do because you want to be all over that rear bumper of the car in front, but in doing so you really limit your visibility. It's very easy to just turn that a little bit too early.
Yeah, just misjudged that. Very easy to do through Skyline, turn in too early and clip the barrier. I've seen that one time and time again in the virtual and in the real. So easy to do. Actually lucky not to have an enormous crash, because normally if you do that and misjudge it too much, then you're actually ending up in a barrier on either side running down the S's. At the moment, Antonio Vera defending from Marco Sanz, as Marco Sanz is going to what will be the inside through the kink at the chase, and then the outside for the heavy braking zone. But this one might actually work, as I don't think there's going to be much fighting on the part of Antonio Vera, and does actually allow Marco Sanz to get through Oh, Sergio Barnes disqualified for speeding in the pit lane. That tells me that he has come in at a rapid rate of knots. And for one of the drivers that was inside the top 10, Barnes done for the day, completely done, disqualified from the race, and joins our list of drivers that will not finish the Bathurst 100.
Yeah, weird, because, you know, naturally for a pit lane you do slow down, even if you do overshoot by a couple of seconds. That's only a 5-second or drive-through penalty as we've seen for Torres earlier on. But disqualification, he must have been flat out into that pit lanes, and it is a shame. It's going to be demoralizing to him because he was driving relatively well. He had a good couple of battles, and just one small clumsy mistake has seen him out of this race. And that's probably going to be, well, he's going to be seeing this as a waste of probably, you know, 45 minutes of his time.
Probably even more so. I mean, the fact that we're 55 minutes into this race, the fact that we did a 20-minute qualifying session, the fact that there's, you know, probably a good hour of practice gone into this, that will not be ideal. Let's see Rafael Heinrich, who's defending at the moment from Luis Picciotto, who's just got down the inside. But the focus here would really be on that yellow and blue Camaro of Machuca, who's just got through there on Heinrich, and now will set himself some sights on Luis directly ahead. Nearly got through there into the cutting, and unfortunately for him, will have to sit there and wait and wait and wait, and will look just ever so slightly running through Frog Hollow and then back up at Solomon Park. Takes way too much of the curb at Solomon Park, and then through McPhillamy. At the moment is losing time hand over fist over the top of the mountain. Was so desperate to get through, still no way to pass down through the S's, and there won't be a position made up here. Potentially there might be a dive into Forest Elbow, but realistically speaking, he's going to have to wait all the way until the chase to make sure that he can clear this car, and that is such a long time. I think Mathez is also into the pit lane. We're very deep in this pit lane sequence, so everyone's come in, just not our race leaders.
Strange enough, and DeGrasse has actually closed the gap. This is Machuca going to the left. It's going to be the outside of Paisotto in towards the chase. It's going to be the long way around. It will quickly turn to the inside if he can be brave enough under braking. Paisotto trying to squeeze him. Machuca having to back out of it. You can see a bit of a flash of the headlights. He's not happy with that, but Paisotto goes in deep over the grass. And Machuca says, thank you very much. Stick to his racing line. And, well, that was a very, very easy move indeed. And Paisotto has lost enough time that he won't be launching a counter-attack on Machuca anytime soon. But yeah, Pfeiffer and DeGrasse, neither of which into the pit lane. I don't think, well, yeah, any one of the top three, I'm pretty sure, are not into the pit lane, which is strange. They're going very, very long. Maybe they're draining this fuel tank dry and then just putting enough fuel that they need in at the pit lane. I don't know. But to be fair, they had a big enough gap that they can pretty much do what they want anyway.
I mean, Pfeiffer and DeGrasse, I get, they're in a world of their own right now. They're literally just battling each other, and that's more so on the timesheets than it is directly on the racetrack. For Attila Dina, I mean, he actually has to cover off Alex Mosin, Sven Mackenberg, Marco Sanz. I mean, Sven Mackenberg has jumped Marco Sanz in the pit lane sequence and is not that far away from the rear end of Alex Mosin. Fantastic sequence from Sven Mackenberg. Now, the issue is from Attila Dina is that he's got to be keeping his eye on Alex Mosin on the timesheets, because that is the threat for the podium, and that's what he's thinking about right now. So I would assume that we'll see Attila Dina into the pit lane. There's Sebastian Ree into the pit lane for his pit stop, and I don't think Attila Dina, no, he didn't come in. So just driving around doing his own thing. Maybe it'll cost him a podium. Maybe he'll gain it by not taking tyres, just clearing off into the sunset. I don't know, but right now I'm a little concerned by that from Attila Dina.
He probably knows better than we do. I mean,
probably.
He's probably put a lot
of...
hard. Yeah, exactly, you know. We're just as new to this as a lot of drivers on this, so, you know, who knows? He's done the preparation. He's probably got instinct, trust in his own strategy, and it might work out for him. It's one of those gambles. When it comes to strategy, it is always a gamble. You can never be sure which is going to be the better strategy, even if maybe coming in a little bit earlier, such as, you know, such as Mackenberg did. it may be beneficial, but you never know. Coming in too early, you'll find yourself in a bit of traffic, and then that will quickly turn into not being the quickest strategy. But if you stay out too long, then those such as McGlade on the fresh tyres will close up the gap very quickly. This is a couple of cars. This is Mackenzie and Heinrich, I believe, coming in to the pit lane for their one and only stop. Just got to be very careful. They do not want to end up with a disqualification. And for the majority, everyone's actually kept it clean into the pit lane. It is, to be fair, it's a tough pit lane.
It's a very, very difficult pit lane around here at Bathurst. I was going to ask you, as quite close in pit lane, I can't, this is the thing, right? And I was bringing this up to a couple of drivers about contact in pit lane, and obviously in some simulators we do have contact in the pit lane, in others we don't. In RaceRoom there is no contact in the pit lane. You can just drive through and phase through, so you should be all right, but I can't remember, so don't quote me. But Attila Dino will take over the lead here at the Bathurst 100 and run away with things at the front, at least for now. With 40 minutes left on the clock, we're expecting to see this car dive into the pit lane in sort of 2, 3, 4 minutes as out of the pit lane. That is post pit lane. De Grasse has come out ahead, and very, very comfortably so, of Max Pfeiffer. Now that tells me that is no tyre, that is just fuel. There is Pfeiffer still in pit lane, departing now, losing lots and lots of time to his closest rival, and now will hopefully on fresh tyres will have to try and close down this 24-second gap all the way down to De Grasse. That tells me that De Grasse has been looking after his tyres and playing the long game.
He has indeed. That might explain the sort of pace deficit between himself and Pfeiffer. But 23.3 seconds in 40 minutes, that is a monumental task. That is around about just over, I think, a second a lap that he's going to need to claw back on the grass. And then he's got an even bigger task of actually finding a way through, because even if he does get through, it's not going to be a walk in the park, because De Grasse, he got pole position. He's going to want to convert that into the race win, and he's going to make that Camaro twice as wide as it is actually wide. And, you know, he's just got to keep it consistent now. De Grasse, he's in a net P1. When Dino comes into the pit lane, he will be in P1, and he'll have a 22-second lead over Pfeiffer, who has been comfortably leading this race for the last hour, and at the moment now has the task of closing in 22 seconds. I mean, this lap alone has come from 23.3 to now 21.8. So, you know, I reckon it's going to be very close towards the end of this race.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that realistically Damien De Grasse needs to just drive his own race. Actually, if you can, you know, if you know how, whatever, turn off the gap to the car behind. Don't worry about it, because, to be honest, there's nothing you can do about it. If you're driving as fast as you can, well, you're driving as fast as you can. You'll know when that orange and white car appears behind you, if it does. But if you turn off the gap, you're basically tunnel vision. It's just you and the track for about 40 minutes. And that's hard enough in itself, but whilst you're not focusing on the gap, I mean, I've seen it time and time again where people have been focusing on the gap and they've gone, oh, it's dropped down by 3/10 through the first sector, and then they start making mistakes because they're so focused on that gap that that's the only thing they can look at. This is certainly not done. I would suspect, especially with the pace differential that we were seeing there, that Pfeiffer is going to catch De Grasse at some point. It's just whether it's going to be late in the race, whether it's going to be in the next sort of 20 minutes and there's plenty of time to do something about it. Let's wait and see. But right now, Pfeiffer is going to be honest, pretty annoyed, which might actually make him much, much faster indeed and might be able to close down that gap to De Grasse. At the moment, our race leader is Attila Dino, who is, again, just to remind you, yet to stop in this race. We still need to see him. He still owes us a pit stop. He still needs to go and stick some more fuel in the car. But at the moment, running around at the front, which, to be fair, getting a couple of laps led on the leaderboard is never a bad thing.
Feels nice to say you led a race, I suppose, you know, even if it's short-lived. I mean, he probably will still come out around about P3, maybe P4, maybe P5 if Mackenberg has done the job. We've seen pit stop times be around about between 40 and 50 seconds, so probably will slot in very nicely. And if he does take tyres as well, we've seen that the fresher tyres do have a very overwhelming pace compared to the older tyres, which in 15, 20 minutes time are going to be screaming for help for the final stages of this race, and that's when the fresher tires in a nicer temperature window. They're not going to be sliding about at all. You've got that fresh tire grip, and you're going to be feeling a lot more comfortable, especially around a track like Bathurst. It's a better feeling to be on better tires around Bathurst, and that will play into his factor. But he is going very abnormally long. I think he's one of the last drivers to pit, and yeah, DeGrasse and Pfeiffer both have come in as well, whereas Dyder's stayed out. It's weird, but DeGrasse isn't actually closing the gap on him very much. It's sort of stagnated around 12.9, 13 seconds between the two. So he's sort of just, yeah, he's still got good pace. So why come into the pit lane if he doesn't need to? If he's maintaining good pace, then sort of stay out. But for Pfeiffer, yeah, he's got a big task in his job. It probably will filter out towards the end, as you say, probably whether that's in 15 or 20 minutes time. Pfeiffer, he's a man on a mission.
Yeah, and we'll keep our eye on this gap. Every time we jump back to Max Pfeiffer, it's 19.3 seconds at the moment. That's come down a few seconds over the last few laps, but seems to have stabilised just a little bit. Now, if it comes down just a second a lap, that will not be enough. It needs to be more than a second lap. Ideally, to be honest, needs to be 2. And let's be honest, around a circuit like this, that is a pretty tall order. And so Pfeiffer now, like I say, he's going to be pushing. But you see they're out of the cut and the gap goes up now. We can't say for 100% certainty that gap is completely legitimate. It will fluctuate across the circuit just as average speeds and such play into it. But right now the gap, we'll just say it's hovering around 19 seconds. With just 36 minutes left to go, it needs to be a confidence-inspiring drive at the moment from Max Pfeiffer. Tilladine, like I say, he's just going to go as long as possible. He's going to stick some fuel in it, and he's going to try and come out. And realistically, if he sticks some fuel in it now, probably should come out fairly comfortably in 3rd place, realistically speaking. And then if he does the same kind of lap times that DeGrasse is doing, then the podium's pretty much bob on. But it's just ifs and buts at the moment. We don't know fully what's happening behind the scenes of each of these teams and drivers. I just think if there's one driver at the moment that will be frustrated, it will be this man right here.
100%. He's probably expected DeGrasse to have taken tyres as well, and now he's come out of the pit lane miles behind. Not even, he's going to need a pair of binoculars to see DeGrasse, if that. And he's now got the task of actually physically closing that gap down. He's done a relatively good job of it, and for the remainder of this race, he is just going to have that motivation. He knows he's got the pace to win this race. But when you think of these guys were separated by less than half a tenth of a second, less than half of a blink of an eye in qualifying, they aren't separated by much. But based off the first stint, Pfeiffer does have the pace to catch DeGrasse. But then again, we haven't seen how DeGrasse can defend. He probably will fight it as hard as he can and just hope that, you know, as you say, not look behind, worry about his own thing, clear the lap traffic as quickly as possible, and just do his own thing, stay consistent, because as soon as he starts worrying about the gap behind, that's when the mistakes will start to creep in, and mistakes will quickly add up. And, well, I would say if DeGrasse, well, if he makes a mistake right now and Pfeiffer's right to the back of him, 30 minutes to make a move, even if he is patient, even if he is sort of Sands level patient, there's still plenty of time to get a move done.
Yeah, like I say, and then plenty of grip difference as well, because obviously at that point in the race, those that are going the distance will be struggling a fair amount, and that means that there's plenty of opportunities, especially as mistakes are made. But you can see here as we ride on board with DeGrasse, he's got other problems. He's got himself quite a bit of traffic directly ahead, so this is certainly not going to be what he wanted to stare at. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think it might be Andreasen directly. It actually might be Alex Brown and West directly ahead, but either way there is traffic. There is a Mustang in there anyway. Hard to tell which one, as they're going to go for a move regardless and sort themselves out directly ahead of someone battling for the race lead, which is really stressful. When you're in this position Damien DeGrasse is in, and you're seeing drivers battling it out left, right and centre, even if they're doing the same speed as you, even if they're going a little bit quicker than you, if they're a back marker and they're in your way, from a mental point of view, they're holding you up. It's very stressful, and DeGrasse needs to stay calm now, more so than at any other point during the previous hour and 10 minutes of this race.
It's just about keeping himself composed. He knows he's got a very good likelihood of winning this race, provided he can keep a calm head, a very, you know, just don't get hot-headed. Yes, they're battling. Yes, they're battling in front of you, but if you try and dive your way through a set of traffic, you're not even racing, they're a lap behind you. And if you try and start to dive your way through, make rash judgments very quickly, it's only going to hurt your race. And once he gets through, Pfeiffer, to get to De Grasse, is going to have to get through the same set of traffic. So he knows that Pfeiffer will get held up by these guys as well. Whether it's to the same degree or not is a different story. But yeah, he just needs to pick his way through, be very, very patient, not make not make decisions in haste. He has this race in hand, provided he can get it to the end, and provided that Pfeiffer doesn't catch up to him with a decent amount of time left to go. Nowhere really where he can do it now. He's going to have to do it down the Conroy Straight, but it is just awkward. In fact, that was very nice from that Camaro to let him through. That he didn't really have to do that. He could have just stuck on his line, but De Grasse is going to say thank you very much, and it's going to cost him a lot less time. But yeah, backmarkers, they don't want to concede from their own battles, even if you are coming through.
It's just how it goes when it comes to catching backmarkers and such. I know you love a good story of me crashing at Bathurst. I did it a couple of times at Bathurst 12 hours. More of a scrape rather than a crash, whereas this was a proper crash. Was battling for a championship with someone by the name of Oscar Harbuck. I think plenty of people in the community might actually know. He's done a fair amount on RaceRoom and such, but has raced in sim racing for a very long time. Was battling him for a championship, and around here, I was sat in second position of the race. Oscar had run off into the distance, but it was fine. I was leading by enough. I just needed a podium, and behind me, I was in second. So behind me was a car that I didn't actually have to fight, but it was Lars Bergman, who was closing in, was sat right on my rear, and I decided that, right, I'm going to pull the pin, I'm going to start going quicker, I'm going to start going quicker. And I started setting times to pull a gap out a little bit. Got some backmarkers who were reluctant to get out of the way, shall we say, and then running into Murray's, the final corner, I thought it was a really, really solid idea to completely miss my braking point by about 50 metres. Not wise. Ended up damaging the car quite significantly in the barrier. Just about crawled it round to the finish line and grabbed the podium and won the championship. Yay, all that kind of stuff. But still, it's like you say, for right now to twist that into something which is relevant for this race at the moment. De Grasse needs to be harnessing the things that I wasn't, which is to just drive within yourself, to not worry about the traffic, because if you're setting the times you can set, then so be it. Don't overdrive it trying to clear some lap traffic, which isn't really the main focus right now. Just keep your eye on the prize, which is what you're doing.
Yeah, just eyes forward, do your own thing. Just don't drive anywhere, well, drive near the limit, maybe 95%. Don't drive on it, or definitely not over it, because, well, we've seen how just harsh the track can be here, and it has been today. Is this a move for P8? Indeed it is. This is Machuca looking to the outside of Deacon towards the final corner, going to try and go underneath him. Gets a brilliant drive. That was textbook switchback from Machuca, who gets himself ahead of Deacon in towards the top 8. But Deek has been proven to be quite the rascal in latching onto the back view in the toe and then launching a counter attack. So he might be able to do it, but Machuca, he set that up brilliantly. It is just about picking your moments, setting the move up a couple of corners in advance, knowing where the car in front is going to defend, where he's slower, and then just pulling to the right hand side, putting him offline, saying, well, you're going to go in deep, I'm going to go underneath you. And yeah, Machuca, a nice move indeed. But back to De Grasse. Yeah, he just needs to do his own thing. Drive the car into the limit, drive at a comfortable speed, nurse the tyres, and make sure they don't hit a cliff.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll ride back then with Damien De Grasse, who has a little bit of that lap traffic. The one that let him through so nicely over the top is now sat on his rear end thinking, oh, God, I thought you were a bit quicker than this, mate. Just get on with it a bit. Of course, not the race leader yet, but we're expecting this car to take over the race lead at some point. I wonder what the gap is now. Okay, yeah, no, fair enough. 12 seconds is the gap. The last time we checked in it about 10 minutes ago, it was 19. Now, that doesn't mean that it's a guaranteed pass, but it does mean that I do think that if Max Pfeiffer wants this done, it's probably going to have to be done on the racetrack, provided Damien De Grasse doesn't make a mistake, doesn't come down pit lane again to switch tyres or anything in that vein. The gap, regardless, is coming down and down and down. Also, speaking of gaps coming down, Alex Mosin's gap to Attila Dina is also coming down to the tune of about 3 seconds, but I still think Attila Dina's pit stop should be short enough to consolidate the podium gap, but we'll obviously have to wait and see how that one unfolds. Plenty of battles going on. Obviously, that one between De Grasse and Pfeiffer for the race win a bit distant at the moment. Will close down the gap between Attila Dina, as there is Alex Mosen. I was just giving him some plaudits for closing in that gap, but Attila Dina should be a little bit more comfortable now, as Alex Mosen's issue will promote Sven Mackenberg up into 4th position. Not quite Sands, though, who's just coming through shot there in that black and yellow Camaro. Big mistake from Alex Mosen, done through Griffin's Bend. Very easy to do.
It is a very easy mistake to do, and this track will spit you out very quickly, but Mackenbach has driven a very, very solid race today. He did something slightly different with the strategy, coming quite early for a fresh set of tyres, and he's actually reaping the rewards very nicely. P4, and we don't know where he's going to come out in relative to Dina, who will have to come in probably very soon. His tank of fuel is not going to be like in the fact that it's practically running on fumes at the moment. 52 seconds between them. It could be a straight fight between the two for a podium. Yeah, but for Alex, it's a very weird mistake because he hasn't made many this race, and now he's gone from 4th to a potential podium. We're having to fight with Attila to now, Sam's not breathing down his neck, but 1.5 seconds, and it's certainly there. So for Mostyn, he just needs to limit that and make sure he doesn't do that again. Learn from your mistakes, make 1 or 2, sure, everyone probably will. But it's when you make 2 or 3, that is really when they just start to add up, and the time lost is just too much to recover.
Speaking of people that need to learn from their mistakes, I think we need to learn from our mistakes, which is just completely ruining people's days with the commentator's curse.
No praise.
A few times. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I've said it time and time again. I don't believe. Marco Sands goes a little bit wide. I don't believe in the commentator's curse, which is obviously very easy to say. I don't believe in the commentator's curse, but no, I don't, because it's bad driving. No, it's mistakes happen, technical issues happen. That's just racing as a whole. If we weren't talking about it, we'd just be saying, "Oh, that was a bad moment for them." Whereas obviously now it's commentator's curse. But it's so easy to put the commentator's curse on people if you were to think about it. Max Pfeiffer is doing a really good job at the moment. There you go, boom, there's one.
De Grasse too.
De Grasse, great job, boom, there's one gone. Who do you want to win this race? We'll curse everyone else. It's obviously not the case. It was a bit of fun to play with. At the moment, though, these two are very much the star of the field, and I do think, as there was a little bit of a car into the Barrett Forest Elbow, which has delayed Max Pfeiffer off, who Pfeiffer is not particularly happy with that, just because he come around the corner, wants to take the race in line, but unfortunately there's a car in the way. Heads up driver, though, to back out of it enough and not ram the throttle down and join into the carnage.
Again, this could be De Grasse's saving grace, Is this Dina finally into the pit lane? I was just going to say, what's the possibility he'd go to the end? But no, straight away into the pit lane. It is pretty much going to be a splash and dash. He's not going to have to spend long in the pit lane because he's not going to have to take very long to actually refuel the car. That's probably what his thought process was the fact that he's not going to have to spend very long. So De Grasse does finally take the net race lead that he's had hold on to. But look at the traffic Pfeiffer's got to negotiate through. And this was, as I say, De Grasse's saving grace. De Grasse had to negotiate this same traffic that allowed Pfeiffer to close as quickly as he did. But he's caught them at a nicer point, I think. Maybe it's all about timing with traffic, isn't it? It all depends on who it is and how quickly they'll let you through.
Absolutely. And right now then, our return to the race lead is in the hands of De Grasse. Now, Pfeiffer lost around about a second there, and will try and regain it. Has already gained pretty much the entirety of that second back, as now has a bit of a Mustang sat in the way. I think that one is potentially Henrik Andreasen. He's sat in 17th. Pretty sure he's driving a red and black Mustang post pit stop, and you can see there, and that's why I think Attila Dina was on the right strategy. He was bob on for doing the just fuel, because he is not far off 30 seconds, 25 seconds ahead of Sven Mackenberg. So really good for him to have done this. Now, we're seeing Max Pfeiffer here just struggling to get through traffic. And this is the thing with De Grasse. If De Grasse is in traffic, it's not so much a bad thing for him because he's doing the same pace as that traffic anyway, courtesy of his older tyres. Max Pfeiffer, who's so much faster, he gets behind traffic and is so much faster than the traffic. And that's where the danger lies, is going too fast among the traffic and getting involved in an incident. I believe that definitely was Andreasen, because I think Henning is the next one just down the road in that white Mustang a few Mustangs in shot, and all those Mustangs are battling to be the highest Mustang. At the moment, that is being held by Alex Brown in 15th position. Hennig and Andreasen, who are on shot there, are all very, very close indeed. Just about 5 seconds separates the trio there as de Grasse hits the front and really starts to tick some laps off. 9 seconds clear with 23 minutes to go.
It is now biting stuff, isn't it, between himself and Pfeiffer? 9 seconds, just shy of 23 minutes left to go. 22 minutes and 50 seconds. It's going to be very close. And of course, Pfeiffer clears the traffic, has to close that 9.5 seconds. That's without any mistakes. That's assuming he's nailing every apex, making sure he gets the maximum out of these tires and not pushing too hard, because it's very easy to do. It's very easy to get complacent. He's very quick, but he's also having to get the most out of that car in order to extract that pace. And he could quite easily make a pretty, well, you can see he is twitching around. That's probably just down to the Chevrolet being very twitchy, as we have said a number of times. That gap is soon to be under 9 seconds. He has got the pace, but again, it's one thing catching up, it's another thing getting past, and then it's another thing clearing the gap as to not, well, see yourself vulnerable to a counterattack.
Yeah, Hennig dispatched. Next car to dispatch should be Alex Brown, just a bit further down the road, unless that isn't those two. There is Alex Brown, so yes, it would be. It's a good shout. Oh, I'm all right at this. Andreasen and Hennig then passed. And Alex Brown, the reason we focus on him, again, if we want to talk about top cars, again, top Mustang, so doing a very solid job at the moment. James West directly ahead, so could potentially gain another couple of positions. Antonio Vera as well, just ahead, so a nice three-way fight beginning here that could well have a couple joining. Just in the background there, did see Max Pfeiffer bouncing a little bit off the barrier, running through Forest's elbow, so pushing very, very hard, scraping the right-hand side of his Camaro, and that gap is still going to hold around about 8.5, 9 seconds. So not much coming down that lap, but still, if he laps a second faster, roughly from this point on, then we're looking at a last lap duel. It does seem as though Max Pfeiffer is a little bit quicker than that at the moment in comparison to de Grasse. So I think in the final 5-10 minutes of this race, we will see these two nose to tail. But every lap that passes, Zach, Max is going to be getting essentially slower and slower because his tyres are going to be wearing out. Meanwhile, de Grasse is kind of sort of plateaued. They're sort of sat where they are. And whilst, yes, they will be getting worse, the pace is a bit more predictable in its unpredictability. Yeah,
it's sort of just, as you say, it's a gentle curve in terms of the grip levels. It's sort of, as you say, plateaued. It's going to be a lot nicer. It's going to be a lot, his pace is going to stay consistent, whereas Pfeiffer is going to dramatically see that momentum shift. He's not going to be anywhere near as quick as he was with that blistering pace at the start of his stint as he just come out of the pit lane. And the further he gets into this race as well, every lap that ticks by, that's a lap less that he's going to have to get by when he does actually get to the back of the grass. So he needs to get a move on. He needs to clear the traffic. He needs to claw back that 8.5 seconds, because 20 minutes in a 100-minute race, he's not got long left to go. And looking to the inside of the Mustang there, that could very easily end in disaster. And because he has got the overwhelming pace, tapping the barrier there through Skyline, it's very easy to sort of underestimate how late you can brake, because he's going to close in the braking distance, and that can catch him out. He might go into the back of the Mustang. It's very easy to do. Not saying it will happen, but it is easy to do. Yeah,
misjudging in such through traffic, which, like you say, for Pfeiffer will be very, very difficult to fight his way through. That one was Alex Brown. Next up for him is Vera, and then West. So West has actually got ahead of Antonio Vera, whilst we looked away from the battle for 13th place. Remember as well, whilst we're speaking of battling, as much as it's not really much you can do apart from entering it, there is still a battle underway, which is in that raffle, which again you can join by typing in chat. I've seen plenty of you doing it, so you can just watch what others are doing. T248 to enter the competition to get yourself a RaceRoom branded Thrustmaster T248 wheel as well. So fantastic stuff, and a bit of a reminder as well, as we'll see a bit more traffic dispatched from Pfeiffer. They should be doing giving away 3 of these wheels to random drivers that are active on ranked multiplayer on October the 28th. and have a reputation of 80 or higher. So got to get your reputation up, which means you've got to go and do yourself some ranked racing, and let's just jump on and get yourselves involved. And if you're looking for an upgrade and you're racing around on some old wheel that you've been having a bit of fun on, but your safety ratings in that kind of your reputation, how safe you are on the circuit is up that high, well, go and get some racing done on October the 28th, and you might be another one of those lucky winners and taking home a Thrustmaster TT48, which, by the way, the LEDs and stuff are absolutely fantastic. Pedals as well, looks brilliant. So be sure to go and get yourselves involved in that by joining in the chat today with just 17 minutes left of the race. The announcement, by the way, as to who has won that will be at the end of this race. We'll finish this race, we'll give you another shout out to do it, we'll take another few minutes to discuss what we've seen, discuss the future of racing here on RaceRoom Competition, and then we'll announce the winner and we'll move off and on to the next one. But at the moment, when it comes to a winner, Zach, I don't know who I'm picking, because every time I go, oh, I'm thinking Pfeiffer here, he's closing down that gap enough, it doesn't come down that much, and then it very much leans the way of De Grasse, who's I think is very much just focused on what he's doing.
Every lap that ticks by, it favors more and more into De Grasse's hands, because Pfeiffer, you know, he's only gained half a second in the last sort of lap and a half or so. I mean, it has come down to about 7.5, but you know, he's got that gap. His tires, of course, as you say, are going to wear out to the point where he's not going to have the sheer pace differential over De Grasse as he has had for the entirety of these stint. He's going to need to find a little bit more in himself if he wants to win this race. He might need to depend on a mistake from De Grasse, who at the moment seems very composed, very calm, doing all he needs to. He's played this to perfection. He conserved his tires enough in that first stint that he's got enough life now in this final stint to just plateau the tires, keep them at a consistent pace, and just run comfortably. Because yeah, he's not had a moment where he's had like a second winner pace, he's blitzed off into the distance, but he's also not had that pace where he's been, you know, really slow. He's been consistently the second quickest car on track.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's kind of it, is that it's just the gap's just not coming down enough at the moment. And whilst you could argue plenty of that is done through you know how they've marched through traffic and stuff, regardless, the fact is the gap hasn't moved enough. Now, in perfectly clean air, Pfeiffer needs to do the business, needs to get on with it, copying Scott McLaughlin there a little bit over the top and running a touch wide through McPhillamy as we run down the hill. Yet another lap completed, 40 completed already over the running here at the Bathurst 100, a timed race on the mountain as we ride on board with the driver that's led most of the laps this afternoon, Max Pfeiffer, who's ticked plenty off as the race leader. Attila Dina's done a fair share as well before making his pit stop and now running around in third spot. But Pfeiffer right now is starting to turn the cogs, is starting to close that gap down. It's starting to close it down quite a bit, 6.5 seconds there. We'll watch it as we cross the line, as obviously it will to and fro a little bit. I'm really not sure, which is great. That's perfect. That's exactly what we want, is that I do get the feeling that, you know, on the final couple of laps of this race, we are definitely going to be seeing these two very much in the same shot. You can just about see De Grasse as we'll come out of Hell Corner now. You can just about see him there, just on the horizon, just about to go over the crest. And that now for Pfeiffer is target fixation. He knows exactly who he's going for and now can see him.
Now we can see him. He's, yeah, as you say, got something to aim for. He's tunnel visioned on to the race leader. The man has been pretty much fighting all throughout qualifying for pole position, and of course in that first stint wasn't much of a fight, but he's definitely been his closest rival. And well, De Grasse, it's nice that the two race leaders, the two people in sort of a league on their own, league of their own, have done different strategies to really spice this thing up. De Grasse, of course, not taking tires at his stop, whereas Pfeiffer going
Sands
for it. This is Sands again, a weird mistake, because again, he's one of those drivers that have been driving really well, but such is the case with Mustang, he again just succumbed to a weird mistake, and that has separated the good from the great, because both of them have had good pace, but again, Bathurst will spit you out if you give it the chance to.
Yeah, it's a circuit that bites, where you've got high-speed grass runoff if you clip it slightly too wrong. If not, you've got a wall one or the other, and either way you'll probably find a wall at the end of anything regardless. And so for some of these drivers, they have been bitten. A 2-minute 2.2 from Max Pfeiffer, an absolutely superb lap time in this race. That'll be in the last few moments of this race. And when you bear in mind, if you turn your memory back to qualifying, I think it was a 2:01.8 that was enough for pole position in this race. That was done by DeGrasse. That shows how fast Max Pfeiffer is going at the moment. So those green lap times, not their last lap time, that was their personal best lap time, and Pfeiffer setting the fastest lap of this race. That pole position, by the way, went the way of Damien DeGrasse, but the race lead was stolen by Max Pfeiffer down into Hell Corner on that very first lap, and then consistency allowed that gap to go out more and more and more. And now it's that consistency which is allowing that gap to come down bit by bit. It's under 5 seconds now. It's coming down about 1.5 seconds a lap. That to me sounds like enough at least to see them close, but it doesn't guarantee a side by side. It's that age-old thing that we've said time and time again elsewhere, Zach, that the racing, catching again, the whole Murray Walker said it, catching is one thing, passing is another. But the thing is if you catch, you've got to get the move done almost straight away, because if you don't, you end up just driving around at their speed. You end up just copying what the car's doing ahead, regardless of your pace advantage, if you can't get by in a couple of laps.
It is all about that momentum, and you have to get it done quickly, because if DeGrasse puts up a defense for a couple of laps, then Pfeiffer's going to be stuck. He's going to be sort of stagnated. He might have to come off a little bit and then drive up to the back of him and try and use that backwards momentum, because he has got the pace. He's proven that, because he's closed a 24-second gap in around about 2/3 of a stint. It's only been a good half an hour since his pit stop, and he's closed down a monumental amount of time. This is a battle between Mackenzie and Deek in towards the chase. This is Mackenzie going to go to the right hand side. Is he going to get the drive to the inside? No, Deek does not flinch whatsoever. Can Mackenzie be late under brakes? He does. He's very brave, sends it up the inside. Deek trying it around the outside. He tries to look up the inside, but Mackenzie, very nice move indeed. And that seals the position into the top 9. But Deek still a top 10, and it has been a very, very difficult race for all of these drivers. And just getting to the end is going to be something to be proud of. But Mackenzie, a bit of a squirm off the final corner, that could open the door for Deek.
Not quite though. Was quite, but it was actually well done to catch that, because that can get out of control, as we saw from Sands. That's exactly what happened to Sands. But they're not so great, not so hot through Hell Corner, and Deek is back onto the scene, nearly just partially getting alongside on that run up Mountain Straight towards Griffin's Bend. You've got to watch out as well as Geisler's behind. Deek's allowed Mackenzie to retake and rehold 9th position and not force his way alongside, and Mackenzie's able to hang on. But it is definitely 3 cars now battling for 9th, 10th and 11th position entering the final 10 minutes of this race. Just 3.5 seconds separates the top 2, and that gap between DeGrasse at the moment our race leader, Max Pfeiffer in 2nd position, Attila Diener in a world of his own, sat in 3rd spot. Sven Mackenberg doing enough through the pit lane sequence to move up to get in contention and to grab what looks to be a 4th position. But Alex Mosen, after a mistake not too long ago, running out of Griffin's Bend whilst he was trying to close Attila Diener down, realistically now will try and do the same thing to Sven Mackenberg, Sebastian Ree and Marco Sands, 6th and 7th, Machuca, Mackenzie and Deek. The battle inside the top 10, of course. You can say that Geisler is very much a part of that battle, and Shakan, to be fair, is not too far away. The highest placed Ford Mustang being Alex Brown still. There was a bit of close battling between Hennig and Andreasen. I think there might have been contact as Hennig's dropped right down the order. Speaking of switching, I'm pretty sure I saw one inside the top 10, and that was Sands looking down behind Ree, as Max Pfeiffer our focus once again. And it's now under 3 seconds.
Oh, around about 2.7 with 9 minutes left to go. It probably will be decided. What have we got now? About 4 laps left, maybe? Just about 4, maybe. Yeah, it depends when they're going to cross the line. But yeah, about 4 laps left to go in this race. And yeah, for DeGrasse, it's just keep doing what you've been doing for the last half an hour, 40 minutes. Doing what you've been doing for the last, for the entirety of the race. But for Pfeiffer, now he can truly see that the race win is on. He can close that gap. And you can just see in the distance, 2.5 seconds. It's not all that big of a gap. And after, well, what has it been? About 92 minutes of racing, it's now going to be decided by 2.3 seconds between two very different strategies between the two quickest drivers on track, and we still don't know who's going to come out on top.
Yeah, and with the gaps being this close as well on the timesheets, what this means with the lap times they're setting, that we are actually going to get 5 laps of racing here, unless these lot battle insanely hard, which I'm not going to rule out. Should be 5 more laps with 8 minutes and 10 seconds left to go, bearing in mind the lap times that we're looking at is around about 2 minutes and 2 seconds, and they cross the line with about 8 minutes and 25 left to go, so should be more than enough time to get that extra lap in, which, to be honest, I'm sure DeGrasse actually doesn't want. I think he might want to have this one at least a lap shorter, but you never know right now. Might just be able to hang on as back with Attila Dina deep in traffic here and say just driving about by himself. I think that's great. Sat out there, obviously had to fight to go and take the race, the third position in the race, had to fight really hard for it, but then a couple of mistakes and he was able to pull out a fairly healthy gap. And then from that point on, just kept going and kept going and kept going. The last driver to enter the pit lane, and now is very, very secure in this third position at the moment. And no, I'm not trying to commentate as cursing. I know Attila Dina's more than good enough to just keep it on the island. And with 18 seconds to the car behind us, McGlade, should be a pretty comfortable drive to the line.
Should be. I mean, Mustang's not too far back, I mean, relatively speaking, but McGlade has drove a great race. He really has just ticked all the boxes, not being, you know, set in the time she's ablaze, but he's done the strategy well, and was sort of in it by himself for the majority of that first stint. And he did something different. He gambled for sure. It was a big gamble. He got stuck in traffic a little bit, but managed to clear it, and now finds himself P4, which is a very, very commendable position, you know, to be in. It's inside the top 5. A top 10, we said, would be a good result for these drivers. The top 5, and in fact, the top 4 is going to be very, very much welcome for McGlade. And Dina as well. He's another driver that has done pretty well, but I think it really has just been a fight for third place. And, well, between these two, Damien DeGrasse and Max Pfeiffer, 1.1 seconds now separate the two. They've both been absolute tyrants of this race. They've been unmatched by anyone else on the grid. Even DeGrasse's pace on old tyres has been enough to delay Pfeiffer's charge to now 6 minutes left to go. Just around about 3 laps. Pfeiffer's onto the back of him, breathing down his neck. DeGrasse is going to be feeling that pressure, the same amount of pressure he's been feeling for the entirety of his stint. But now he's maintained the gap. Now he's got to keep a car behind, and that is going to be twice as hard.
Yeah, we'll very much have to keep our eyes glued to this, because this is very, very close. A reminder to anyone just jumping in, and I can see that our viewing figures are going up, so plenty of people are joining in. The battle here is between a driver who came in and changed tyres, that one being Max Pfeiffer, and a driver who came in and just took fuel, that one being Damien DeGrasse. These two started on the front row of the grid an hour and a half ago, and now they're going to do battle on the mountain. Of course, whilst we're very quickly here, again, seen you posting in chat once more, exclamation mark T248 to get yourselves involved in the raffle for a RaceRoom branded Thrustmaster T248. And there was a bit of a mistake from Max Pfeiffer departing Forest Elbow, which allows DeGrasse to hang on for yet another lap, and he'll just keep doing what he's doing. Right now, though, I can only hope that he's got some sim racing gloves, because if not, that wheel is going to be getting very, very sweaty, and maybe he'll need a replacement to his wheel, because that is going to be very, very taxing at the moment. DeGrasse is in a position which I would not be very envious of. There is so much pressure, and I do get the vibe, Zach, this might well change up into Griffins if Max Pfeiffer doesn't make a mistake.
Yeah, he just needs to be very, very careful indeed. And in towards turn 1, maximise the exit, take a nice late apex, straight line it. We've seen how difficult it is to get through. Pfeiffer tucked up nice in the slipstream. He's got a 1.1 kilometre straight in order to get this done. We've seen gaps larger than 2/10 be closed. He's going to have the fresher tyres that can allow him to brake a lot later. He's going to have that outside momentum because DeGrasse has taken no chances. He's covering off every front, pulls it back to the left-hand side, but Pfeiffer's going to dive it to the inside. The fight for the race lead boiling down for the last 20 laps or so. And DeGrasse goes in deep over the curb, and Pfeiffer takes the lead.
Too deep. I mean, gave it a good go. I could see exactly what DeGrasse was doing. Threw it in there. Was trying to hold this defensive line. Was definitely fighting it as he pulled it back over to that side of the racetrack. Pfeiffer knew what he was doing. took one look at the inside, and DeGrasse just did not have the grip to fight it. And so Pfeiffer, in one sweet move there, hits the front. DeGrasse, though, he's not done here. As much as he doesn't have the grip, you can see how little room he's leaving to the wall. He is throwing this Camaro around as hard as he can, but I think at the moment that ship will have sailed. And for Pfeiffer, as long as he doesn't make a mistake here, should be gold to take the race victory. He's retaken the race lead. Bit of a snap there, though, dropping down through the dipper. He'll have a couple of laps, though, to savour it, to enjoy it, to indulge himself on a couple of fantastic laps around the mountain.
We said he needed to get it done quickly, and he did exactly that. His first opportunity, and he took it straight away. DeGrasse made the mistake. He opened up that inside. He thought he was safe. He didn't think that Pfeiffer was going to go to the inside, but he did. Pfeiffer knew he needed to get that done because otherwise he might not get another opportunity. The time was running out. The clock is ticking down. Around about 2 minutes and 45 seconds left to go. He couldn't chance it. He had to take that. He had the fresher tires. He had the confidence under the brakes and managed to seal the move and get it done. And DeGrasse, he can't be leaving fine margins like that. He just, when he needed to be defending for the last couple of laps, leaving the door open like that, it was a clumsy mistake, but it's still a valiant effort to have held him on for that long. But again, just full credits to Pfeiffer for that one, because it was a very, very big task. He from now till the end, around about maybe 2 laps, I think they'll just get, you just can't get complacent.
Yeah, that's it, and complacency will be the killer here. I mean, how many times have we seen this where a driver's taken over a position and then instantly makes a mistake? I don't actually think that'll happen in Pfeiffer's case, not because of the fact that he's this good or whatever, but more so the fact that he's been driving around by himself for quite a bit, that he's used to driving in his own bit of air. And then once he's passed, he passed the grass quite quickly. The issue for him is actually that lap traffic that's just around the corner that could cause a couple of problems for Pfeiffer. Should be okay, but I think he'd actually be better off leaving himself the distance to actually not get involved in it. I think he's got plenty of time front and rear to not worry about that traffic too much, and will actually probably just cruise himself. You can, I don't know if you get the vibe looking at it, but it does almost look like he's not pushing it to its very limit. Yes, I've seen a couple of snaps and stuff, but it doesn't seem like it's overexerting himself. He's taken the race lead and now is just cruising a little bit to try and reach the checker flag. He'll have one more lap at the end of this one, and Pfeiffer's done a fantastic job. Led the first lap of the race and looking to lead the final one as well, provided everything goes nicely through this traffic section.
Yeah, just needs to keep it clean. He's got around about 7 kilometers left of this race to go. He's had 100 minutes. It has not been a clean drive. It's not been a certain win for Pfeiffer. It might have looked it in the first in, but he had a massive task to do in this final one. He's now cleared the gap to 3.2 seconds, so he's really opened it up, and a bit of traffic in front. Pfeiffer's going to be getting a little bit nervous, but I think they're just about going to move out of the way and be very, very nice to him indeed, because we've seen before backmarkers getting in the way slightly, fighting their own battles, more than entitled to do so. But Pfeiffer, yeah, he just wants a clean run to the line. He's got one more lap. He's got 6 kilometers left of this race to go, and he's going to try and bring it home for the win. Just cruise it home. Does not need to push. He doesn't need to be setting any lap records on this last lap. He's got 3.4 seconds. Any mistake and all of that hard work over the last 40 minutes will quickly come undone.
Yeah, Deke ticked off there on the start-finish straight. Next one for him is Shakan. I actually kind of think he wants to clear before we get into the deep part of the mountain section, because otherwise jumping out there, if not, you just kind of want to hold position. But there we go, Griffin's Bend. Shakan, very nice, does get out of the way, although I don't think Pfeiffer would give him much room there, was properly diving it in. It's just been a superb drive, but there's plenty of big drives. We've seen Mackenzie jumping up inside the top 10, absolutely superb. West from the back of the grid, up inside the top 15 in 13th spot. Of course, Alex Brown, highest Mustang. Look at that slide from Pfeiffer. He's really enjoying this right now, and to be fair, so he should be.
He's deserved every bit of it. He missed out just on pole. DeGrasse as well put on a stellar qualifying performance. Both of them can be very, very proud of themselves indeed, because they're both driven absolutely stellarly. They've got a 30-second back, 30-second gap back to third, who themselves, third, fourth, fifth, even sixth, have all driven incredible races, and anyone to finish this race inside the top 10 can give themselves a massive pat on the back. But to win in such a fashion is to close down such a big gap. Yeah, Pfeiffer deserves every bit of credit he's going to get, and so does DeGrasse, because he put up a very, very good fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Pfeiffer's coming down into the chase now, and our battle on the mountain here in RaceRoom Ranked Racing has taken us on a adventure of Camaro versus Mustang, which has seen very much in the favour of Camaros. But it's still the driver that makes the difference, and Max Pfeiffer now departs the chase down towards Murray's corner, and a fantastic drive. Started from second position, had to fight for it at the start, grabbed the race lead, and then it was all about strategy, and Pfeiffer played the cards right. He'll cross the line here at Bathurst to take the race win. Pfeiffer on top, De Grasse denied at the final moments, will take second position, and MRS Esports will get 2 cars onto the podium as Attila Dina will cruise his way into third spot. Sven Mackenberg behind that will take fourth position, just clear of Alex Mosen. There's not too much between them running onto the chase for the final time. There is Attila Dina with a bit of back markerage happening behind him and nearly clearing him off the road. Attila Dina departs the corner and then will cross the line in a fantastic third. Great strategy from him to go longer than everyone else and grab that third spot. Sven Mackenberg, there he is in that bright green Camaro, will take fourth position with Mosin. Ree will grab fourth position, at least at the moment, with Sands and Machuca in 7th and 8th. Mackenzie should be able to hang on to 9th position, but they've still got basically a lap to go should there be any mistake. Geisler behind with Shakan as well. Shakan, I believe, was the last car to go a lap down. So Shakan, Deek, West, Brown, and Andreasen all finished the race. Same with Matters, Potu, Hyde, Hennig, and Van der Vaart, who was one of those cars that went down a lap down quite a bit earlier in the race. I think we remember seeing him getting involved in the mix. There is Marco Sands with plenty of damage on the front end of his car. 21st position was Torres, then Hoka de Linga, and then Pichotto with Andegui behind in 24th position, and Williams. A few retirements behind that. Didn't quite catch Raphael Heinrich, who was in the early stages of the race the highest place Mustang, with Antonio Vera, who also retired in the last few moments, I think around the same time as Heinrich. Duran, Broughtigam, Jota, our retirements from the race. A disqualification in the hands of Sergio Barnerez at the back of the field, but either way, our race winner is Max Pfeiffer in fantastic fashion. Great race that was, Max. But great race that was, Zach. Yeah, no worries. I'll call you Max. That's absolutely fine. I was thinking more of Max Pfeiffer, but great race either way, Zach, and fantastic to be here for.
It was a very nice welcome to RaceRoom. I think for myself, it was a great race. For Bathurst standings, very, very clean race, and we had battles of 5 cars involved at one point, and the fight for the race lead, it was a nail-biting chase for Pfeiffer to close that gap in that final stint. He was determined as ever to close that gap, and well, he definitely was convincingly the quickest car on the track. But you can't knock De Grasse, because he put up the effort. He put himself in that position. He was lacking a little bit in the first stint, saving his tires, and then gave himself the best opportunity possible, and only lost out by 6 seconds in the end. So between the two, yeah, a great race and a great race for everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And to have the top 10 on the lead lap as well shows how good they all were. And to be fair, anyone reaching the end of this race, regardless of whether it's a ranked race, whether it's a public server race, whether it's a race in official competition, doesn't matter. To tame the mountain is no mean feat, and everyone's done a fantastic job to put on a great show. A reminder, by the way, that you yourselves can get involved. We've seen it time and time again. We will announce ourselves the winner in a few moments' time, but there is one final chance. Go and get yourselves very, very quickly exclamation point T248 in the chat to go and get yourselves involved in the giveaway, to go and grab yourselves a RaceRoom branded Thrustmaster T248 wheel. The raffle is going on now as we'll look over some of the moments of this race, and there were plenty of them at Bathurst, and naturally that's kind of what we expect. It's been absolutely fantastic, and like I say, I mean, I haven't done too much of these ranked races. I'm more on the competition side. Obviously, we started this with I jumped in for the Imola Grand Prix. I've done the 2.4 hours of Spa, 2.4 hours of the Nürburgring as well, and this now. These, whilst they're a bit more light-hearted, a bit more enjoyable, whilst yes, of course they are ranked, there's no massive prize up for grabs for the drivers, for the teams. They're just here for a bit of fun, and sometimes that's what you need in sim racing. You just need to let your hair down and just attack a circuit and actually just enjoy it.
It's all about having a bit of fun as well. At the end of the day, it is pretend race cars. However seriously you want to take it, it is nice just to have a breath of fresh air. We've had a number of drivers on this grid. This is something they've never done before, and they've still come in. They've enjoyed themselves. They've had fun, and they've had good pace as well. So it's just about experimenting different things, seeing what you do and don't like, and things like this. It's a good opportunity for drivers. Bit of light-hearted fun because admittedly, yes, the sim racing community can sometimes get a little bit toxic. Some people can find themselves getting a little bit too wound up and things like that. So it is just a breath of fresh air, just to relax, have a bit of fun with things, and if you do well, great. But a circuit like Bathurst, it's just about getting to the end, and as long as you've had a good time, that's all that matters. Fight with people that are around your pace, even if it's for 15th. Have fun and have those good battles because you need it sometimes.
You really, really do. Like I say, I've taken, I've been through the whole thing of taking sim racing far too seriously, and trust me, it's much more enjoyable when you just kind of relax into it a bit more and take it a little bit less seriously. Whilst there are the Josh Rogers, the Erhan Iovskis, the Moritz Lerners among us, all these drivers and countless other names that can battle out at the front every single day of the week. Sim racing is not just for the elite. Whilst there is a lot of elitism in sim racing, it's still open for everyone to come in. It is the sport, the esports of everyone, that you can just jump in and go and get yourselves involved, and to get that whiff of racing action that, let's be honest, most of us don't really have the budget to throw it out there in the racing world week in and week out. We just get to do our own little bit, and this is our space to do so. It's closer to the sport that you can get for any other sport. I've said this before with the likes of playing FIFA to get close to football. It's nothing like it. Any of that, like the tennis games, they're nothing like the sport that they're the game of. You just understand the tactics. Whereas sim racing, if you get yourself a wheel, if you get yourself some pedals, if you get yourself a decent screen and such, you can immerse yourself in the racing, and that's exactly what this is about.
Fundamentally, it is the same, push the pedal, turn a steering wheel. You are learning the same skills, and while yes, you're not getting the full immersion of the G-forces and the forces acting upon the car, you are still learning effectively how to race, whether that's decision making or strategy or even basic setup knowledge. It is an important factor. The decision making, the mentality side of things is actually probably one of the biggest things you do learn from sim racing, and we've seen in the past drivers managing to use the skills they've learned on what is effectively a game at their house, to then transfer that into driving, GT cars and some very, very quick supercars around a track and be relatively competitive. It shows that sim racing could potentially in future, if it, progresses that little bit more, be a genuine and affordable entry route for motorsport.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, we are in the final minute of the giveaway, and I'm seeing lots of big names appearing into this. And by lots of big names, I mean lots of names. A couple that I recognise, obviously, give them a couple of shout-outs. Nico Hillebrand posted here's a little while ago. James Wilson, I've seen in chat, someone who was on RaceRoom quite a bit back in the day, was very much enjoying some RaceRoom action. Obviously, one of those drivers that's been in sim racing for a little while, although hasn't done any sim racing in a fair while. Just going to say, getting a little bit of a note, we've had nearly 600, probably now over, based on how much we've been seeing coming in, 600 entries into this. So someone is going to be very, very lucky indeed. Plenty more to come in. And again, just a bit of a reminder for anyone who's not going to win today. Now, let's be honest, with it being 600 to 1, your likelihood is fairly low, but still, that's the point of a raffle. There will also be an opportunity a bit later on in the month, as far as I've been told, there are 3 of these wheels to be given out to random drivers that are active on ranked multiplayer on October the 28th. If you have a reputation of 80 or more. So if you're fancying yourself a wheel upgrade, then that would be a good time to get involved in sim racing. And to be fair, that's the joy of sim racing, though, Zach, isn't it? Every day is race day.
Yep, you don't have to wait 2 weeks and travel across the world or whatever. And in 2 seconds, you can be from Melbourne to Canada and back again in a completely different car, on a completely different track, with a completely different set of people. And you can just plug and play, do it whenever you want. And, that is, again, one of the many joys of sim racing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the only place where you can knock out the Triple Crown in one day, one weekend. Let's go one weekend. You still need to, the Triple Crown's 24-hour Le Mans, so you got to at least do Saturday and Sunday for that. Is closing now. We have the winner, and it is Joe Gaffey. Congratulations to you winning the RaceRoom branded Thrustmaster T248 wheel. Congratulations. But thank you to everyone for jumping in. Like I said, 600 entries. I mean, we've got over 300 viewers. We're having around that throughout the race. Thank you to all of our competitors, and it has been extremely fun. But congratulations to Joe Gaffey regardless. Absolutely superb, and congratulations to Max Pfeiffer for winning the race a little bit earlier on as well. De Grasse as well to getting on the podium, Tilladina as well, and thank you to all of our drivers for putting on a great show, a show which we couldn't do without you, Zach. Thank you for jumping into the commentary booth, and I'll ask you very quickly, how was your first race room experience?
It was a genuine pleasure to be here. I'm not feeling 100%. You can probably tell my voice is slightly raspy, but definitely was worth the effort to drag myself and to come and do it. You can see moments like this you're seeing on the screen. It was a stellar race and a stellar experience. My first one here, and well, I hope for more in the future if this is the consistent thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And plenty more racing coming up on RaceRoom style. Of course, ranked racing is happening all the time. So there is no better time to get on than just now. Open up, especially for Joe Gaffey. You've got to be getting involved. Open up RaceRoom, open up Steam, download RaceRoom. It's a free download. You can get yourselves involved quite easily. Maybe get yourselves the opening booster pack, and then you can jump into basically all the racing that you'd ever really want to do. And there's plenty of it on RaceRoom, of course, with the competitions as well. ADAC GT Masters will be wrapping up in a few days' time, and plenty other championships as well. The Cooper Sim Racing Series ends fairly soon. But speaking of ending fairly soon, that is us done for today. Lewis McGlade, Zach Sweeney have been in the commentary booth. Must give our thanks as well to Mr. Captain Coffee himself, as Chris Doe has been behind the broadcast all afternoon. Thank you to him. Thank you to everyone for watching, and all of our competitors as well. Hopefully we'll be returning soon with another race near you. Until then, though, bye-bye.